Just the current.
Oh, yeah.
It's beautiful.
Yeah. So,
You go out
Sure.
and walk around the course.
yeah, well, run a cart, drive around, and golf course.
Late in the afternoon.
Yeah, they're,
Especially in Florida.
if the diehards out in the morning there, you know.
Yeah, yeah. I'm not.
Oh, not more so?
That's going hard.
I struggle to get 6 in the morning. It gets me
Another goal or
early for all those years.
I used to get up at 5 o'clock.
Great.
How are you?
Good morning. Oh, I don't, you know, I play my piano.
Now,
We are on.
okay. We are live. We'll do the Capital Resource Corporation first. And we'll call the meeting to order.
All right, meeting called to order at 9:06. Roll call Burton.
Here.
Johnson.
Here.
King.
Here.
Wolverine. Here. Trevane. Here. All present and accounted for, Mr. Chair.
All right. Reading and approval of the minutes.
Minutes are on tab 1 of your packet.
I have a motion for approval.
I will make that motion.
Is there a second?
I'll second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Minutes are approved. Bills and communications,
I have none to report.
report of the treasurer.
We will discuss the audit in audit committee.
All right,
At this time, Mr. Chairman, I would ask that the meeting of the CRC be recessed so that the audit committee can meet and can discuss the audit.
have a motion for that?
Second.
In favor?
Aye.
Opposed? We're in executive session.
We're committee session.
Committee session.
Audit committee, yep. All right, tab 2 of your packet has the audit. I did distribute that. I want to thank both Ron and Julie for their efforts in putting together the audit. I didn't have much to do with it at all except forwarding it, which is fine by me, but maybe not fine for them. So thank you, especially for Ron, for really taking charge of that.
Yeah.
So you did receive it last week, if I'm not mistaken. So you did have it in your emails.
So do you want to hit the highlights of this?
I'm going to pass that over to Ron if he's willing to do so, only because he knows it so much better than I do at this point. You okay with doing that, Ron?
Yeah, I mean, because it's a CRC and really they only have one project. The highlights are.
Few and
Not
far
many.
between.
Thank you. I was wondering how I was gonna put that. Thank you. And the only, I guess the low part is that the low interest revenue and that's it for revenue and the cost of the insurance and the audit essentially. And they total around $3,656 according to the audit, which matches the books, as it should. So our net position winds up at the end of the year being 23,563. And that's essentially the activity for the year. I mean, yeah, as far, well, I mean, the job, I mean, as far as the project goes, the college met. As far as I know, it's going very well. It certainly met its jobs. It went up to 10, it actually added 2 this year, 10 FTEs. And so it's going well.
It looks like it was a clean letter and everything is in order. So.
Thanks, Ron, setting that standard for next year. Much appreciated.
Yeah, I do have a question that applies not only to CRC, but also to IDA. Is it possible to move some of the assets to NICLAS or some other entity that takes advantage of moves in bond rates and so on?
Well, it is possible to move it. I mean, we have to follow that guideline about, and mostly it's just treasuries and CDs.
Yeah,
But based on our previous few years of expenses of roughly up, let's just say 4,000 rounding up, and you could probably move 18,000 to a CD and get something out of it.
yeah,
I mean, even locally, it's probably 4.25 or something. I think the last one I did was 4.15 or 4.2, so they're inching up.
yeah.
So certainly you could go from a money market or basically nil to, 4% of 15 minimum, or 18,000.
Yeah, I know at the village of Schoharie, we've moved all of our reserve funds to NICLAS, and it's a rather, we were making $56 a year, and it's a significant increase, so we may as well take advantage of it.
What's NICLAS? I'm sorry.
I forget what it actually stands, but
What is it?
New York, it's
Probably a consortium of villages,
It's a-
municipalities. right?
yeah, and state
Investments in
agencies
New
and
York.
so on, and they invest in treasuries, bonds, that kind of thing. Everything that you can, as a municipality, can invest in legally, they invest in. And you can get, daily market rates and so on, because it, goes up and down. They do all of the work.
The mutual fund companies have, because I did this research with Clincar Hall, they have money market funds that invest solely in treasuries
Yes,
and that sort of thing, and they earn like 5 point something%. Is this, or is our organization okay to invest in something like that, even though it's a mutual fund company? Oh, we don't know yet.
I'd have to look through
Yeah,
that.
yeah.
Somebody look. I believe it might be if it's solely a treasury. The only difficulty is it maintaining a stable asset. I mean, is it?
Well, yeah, but that's the
That's what
pitch.
they claim,
I
right?
mean, Fidelity has it, and so we used Fidelity. I did some research, and Fidelity has one, and it's all treasuries. I mean, there are others that have treasuries and other things mixed, but the funds also have all treasuries, and they're making 4 point something to 5%. And I just did this for Clincar, so wondering.
I think there's a way to maximize this rate environment.
Yeah.
And I'll dig into it a little bit
Great.
more. Obviously, we have some constraints being a public entity.
Yeah.
But there are some organizations out there that help us maximize, and we'll dig into it, and whatever cash is available, it makes sense to try and get the most out of it.
I'll send you the information on my class.
Any further discussion on the audit?
So I would request the audit committee, Jeff, Peter, and Wanda belong to that, to accept the audit. And then we'll have to come out of committee and then approve it through the whole board.
I move that we accept the audit as presented.
I'll second that.
All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Hearing none, accepted.
Okay, you can adjourn audit committee if you'd like to.
Motion for adjournment? Peter, second?
Yep.
All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Hearing none, audit committee is adjourned.
Okay, CRC board meeting has resumed, 9:14 for the record. And we are at reports to the committee, Mr. Chairman.
The governance committee? Oh, the audit committee, I'm sorry. All right. Motion to accept the report from the audit committee,
So moved.
second? Peter,
Yes.
all in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Hearing none, motion approved. That takes care of the audit committee,
Yes, sir.
governance committee,
I don't believe governance met.
okay. Unfinished business,
No unfinished business, Mr. Chairman.
new business.
Mr. Chairman, in the packet, tabs 2A, 3, 4, and 5 are the end of year reports, respectively, the annual report, the investment report, the assessment report, and the mission statement / performance measures report for the board's consideration and approval. Again, thank you very much to Julie and Ron for their efforts in putting this together.
Was Ron, did you retire as of June 30th? Because as of June 30th, you're listed, just noticed this, you're listed as the executive director. Is that accurate? As of June 30th?
Well, it should have been, I don't know if that's my label. That wasn't really my label at that time. I didn't pick up on it, but
No, it'd been earlier than that.
Right? That's what I thought.
depends on which letter you follow.
Um,
I wrote,
That's true, too. That's true, but I just noticed it, so.
And I can't claim any responsibility for CRC. There was no activity while I was,
Yeah.
while Seat was managing affairs.
So it
I
has to
guess
go
I
all
was
the way
more,
back.
I guess
to-
I was, I mean, it should, at minimum, it probably should say active.
I was just gonna suggest forward acting, right,
Mm.
right.
But I don't even know if that,
Okay, we can make that change, no worries.
Any further discussion? I have a motion to approve.
This is what I was talking to you about. I'm sorry. right?
Got it. Yep.
Right. Yeah, so I'll approve it with the changes.
Is there a second?
I'll second.
Any further discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed?
You know, I'm sorry, I had one question on page 5. There was the Paris, what's it called? It's called the Paris submission. Under financial reports, page 5, financial. Page 5, maybe I got it. Something called Paris.
that's the report to the authority budget office.
Is that what it's called? I'm sorry, what is it? I'm
It's a
sorry.
Paris system.
Public Authorities Reporting Information
Okay,
System.
That's the acronym.
okay. I'm just curious as to what that was.
The page before that, just as a note of reference, it had the outstanding bond balance, which started at 10 million. Is now down to 6.919. So, and it, just to show that they're
Okay.
making progress. It's dinging it.
So, motion approved?
I'll make that motion.
The motion was made and
Peter seconded it.
seconded, right? So it.
Okay.
we have to vote again?
All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Hearing none, motion approved. Any further new business?
No, sir.
Move for adjournment?
I'll make that motion.
Second?
I'll second.
On the second, all in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Hearing none. Meeting adjourned. All to order, IDA, Board of Directors meeting.
You can call the order at 9:20. Roll call, Burton,
Here?
Johnson,
Here,
King.
Here.
Overeem.
Here.
Graham.
Here.
All present and accounted for, sir.
Reading and approval of the minutes.
Minutes are in tab 1 of your packet.
Motion to accept.
I'll move the acceptance of the minutes.
There's a second. On the second. Favor?
I,
Opposed? Hearing none, motion approved, minutes are approved. Bills and communications,
Nothing to report, Mr. Chairman.
report of the treasurer.
We will discuss the audit at audit committee. And at this point, I would ask that the IDA meeting be recessed so that enter audit committee.
Motion to recess,
I'll make the motion.
second,
Second.
all in favor?
I,
All opposed? Hearing none. Motion approved.
Audit committee comes to order at 9:21, Mr. Chairman. Tab 2 in your packet is the management report and audit for the IDA. I'll hand it off to Ron again to do a quick summary, and I thank him and Julie again for all their efforts in getting this done.
Well, I think everybody's gotten the report to the board. I think it's, the good news is pretty standard. You know, no findings or, you know, the one thing on there that was mentioned is it's really just part of the audit. Anyway, is the repayment. There's couple loans left. And it totals, I think roughly, it's in here somewhere, $18,000. So we get these payments back and they're due back to the state. Because a couple years ago, or several years ago now, they went back to recapturing program income. So we still have that coming in and we have to give it back. We actually go through the county because they're the ones that pass through and then the county gives it back to the state.
Who are those two people? Remember?
Well, Dan Meany,
Oh,
he goes by the company name and.
Skidmore.
Skidmore, thank you.
yeah.
And then Bull's Head and then Applegrove. They're the 4 loans. Skidmore actually has 2 loans, but he them is 1, so to speak. They're all paying well.
Good.
But anyway, when we get some of that money back, the auditors come up with a schedule and we have to flip it around and just give it back to the state. So that's, and as obviously, as it comes out, it sets our 4 remaining loans. So I guess probably half, at least minimally halfway through, if not more. But anyway, they're all up to date. As far as I can tell, they're doing well.
Right.
And then going to the main part of the audit, I don't think there's anything substantial in there. You know, obviously during the course of the year, you know, the transition, you know, cost, you know, between Seek and then myself, you know, cost some money until we got a full-time person. And that's it. And then unfortunately the projects, which Julie's been working on several, they're out there. The question is when they'll become to fruition type of thing, which is, you know, pretty standard as it has happened over the years. So it's sort of where we stand. If you want to ask any question about the numbers, we can go from there. There is a page in there about, as Julie flipped to it, the pilot section where it shows what the exemptions were for each company and then what the payments were for each company and then the net exemptions. So that's kind of good to look at.
Yes.
Gas, everybody's doing, basically what they're supposed to as far as the money goes. Nobody's, everybody's paid, I guess is what I'm saying. They're all been billed. As far as I know, we're in the pool section now. So,
Do we account for possible recapture, for example, on the bads? Do we have to account for that in as far as accrue any recapture income? Or is it based on what we think their ability to pay? So
no,
Sharon Springs,
we
they
have,
owe us money.
but any money they pay, if, well, assuming we collect or on behalf of the
Yeah.
municipalities, it would be on behalf of the municipality, so then it would go back to the state
All right,
accounting.
all right, so that's a
i.e.
state
tax,
issue, state accounting issue.
Sales
right?
tax, the benefit, which is most of what
Okay,
their recapture attempt will be.
right.
Speaking, but off on that particular business, we did have $7,500 that we collected from SSI over the last couple of years. That was held in escrow, and they were going to get it back if they were successful with the project, and they were not getting it back if they were not.
Right.
Since we terminated the project, the auditor took it and booked it as revenue.
I'm sorry, the auditor,
Auditor booked it as revenue
Right.
during the course of the
Right.
last year
Of course.
because it became
of course.
officially terminated. So it was moved from an escrow account under SSI to our bank.
They're working on that building. During the Harvest Festival in Sharon Springs, there was a guy, I forgot his name, MacGyver or something. Is that his name?
Clemens McGyver and
Yeah.
Art Fisher.
And he was saying, well, we'll be ready here, not at that facility, but across the way somewhere. They'll be ready in the spring. They painted the facade and everything.
This is a bath?
Yeah, they were workers again. I saw workers without hard hats, of course. But yeah, so something definitely is going on there, just as an aside.
So that's the accounting section of that. It still needs to be pursued. Probably more aggressively as time goes on by, our attorney.
Have they ever responded?
They did
To our
not,
letter.
no, they did not. No,
It's surprising.
I'm a little surprised that they didn't say something, even to say why, or can we?
Did we tell them that we booked the $7,500? I don't know that we have a responsibility to do that.
I don't know.
I don't know. But, hopefully, well, in any case, we've got it, so.
So what's our next step in this process?
The next step really has to be to officially or legally go and do a recapture. Start the process, no matter wherever it leads.
So Joe is,
I have not specifically talked to Joe on that topic for several months, due to all the other issues, but, yes, I guess.
Well, you don't
Looking
know.
at Fonda, I'm looking at Fonda.
You don't know this yet, but you've got to put your John Hancock on about 40 pages so that the actual termination can be filed. And they have to be notarized, so we'll have to come up with a time where we can do that in front of a notary. And then I'll send those originals back to Joe, and then he will probably get that started. And while he's doing that, I'll stay on him to figure out how the recapture process is going to work. And we'll go from there. But I think the first steps are going to be internal here with some signatures.
Do we have to engage the county in that as well
No.
for recapture?
I mean, we may want to inform them, but yeah, they're not. Will have to happen is the real estate, the sales tax too, as far as the county goes. That's, as far as the village goes, it's only the real estate taxes, but I guess they will be informed,
Okay.
but they don't have any legal, they don't have to jump in. Unfortunately, because it would help us, but
What about the expenses of the recapture? Do we get any of those back somehow? No, we're gonna hire
it's in the
Joe Scott
agreement,
and.
right? Well, it's in the agreement that the company pays for this.
so they'll pay our expenses.
We can charge them for it.
Well, we'll charge them for it. That's better. That's absolutely right. Okay, thank you.
Yeah.
Is it something that if we do this in the next 60 days, we can get on the tax bill and recoup through the January tax bill?
I think we could try that. I don't know how fast it'll work, but I think it's
Should
worth,
be
I think it's worth an effort.
Should be a relatively simple calculation, right?
Yes.
I mean,
Yes, on our end of the month, you know, they
take
say,
30 minutes to do the calculation, figure out how much that was.
yes. I'm sure they'll argue about the sales tax, but they're the ones that given me a sworn report or signed report, you know, yearly. So that's the ST 340 is what it's called. But anyway, we have a list of sales tax claims, exemptions over the years. And I have a chart on the property taxes, what was and wasn't paid, or the exemption plus what was paid. So
Right.
there's a net difference. So yeah, it shouldn't take, the dollar amount shouldn't take long.
Okay.
It'd be fun collecting that.
Yeah.
We've only tried once before. Didn't work.
I mean, otherwise it's a lien on the property, right? So, I mean.
Yeah, and
you don't get
actually,
paid for that.
actually, the properties used to be, not very long ago, clean. So as far as not being down, you know, the list of 1 through 10 owners, or, you know, liens on it, it's clear.
So you're saying IDA's first lien?
It could be. I mean, this was, you know, a year or two ago, last I looked, but it wasn't leveraged. The other one we did was quite leveraged, so.
All the more reason to act quickly.
I hear. I'll coordinate with Joe best I can.
Any further discussion on the audit?
Oh, but I think that we do have an investment for it in the bank, but I think Peter's kind of applies, like he said, to ag as well. I mean, some things are already in CDs. But it's time to probably take another look.
Sometimes it's worth getting out of the CD, depending on what the interest rate is with the penalty versus what you make up at a time. So that's just a math equation, and, you know, but I will take a look at it as we move forward on it and see if we can't leverage. The idea obviously has more significant funds than the CRC, so we'll look at it and we'll see what we can do to you know, gain a little bit more advantage there.
Should your budget reflect the contract with the county as well, since it is executed? It's essentially a pledge for funding.
Good point.
Yeah. In the future.
There are a number of modifications that I think our original budget needs to have. We're going to talk about some of one-time costs and some things later on in this meeting. What I think makes the most sense is us talking about some of those things now. I'll record whatever decisions the board makes along with some of the things that have happened. And then I'll present a modified budget to the board next month, just to have a look at it and see kind of where we anticipate being at the end of the year. If that's acceptable to the board. I've been working on it, but there's still some question marks on some costs out there that I think we'll be able to bear it down pretty quickly.
Maybe there's a finance committee meeting or something.
Yeah.
That wants to talk through that.
And that, yeah, I think, I mentioned that the finance committee should meet next, not an hour from now, but I mean, next meeting. We finally get that information together. I mean, the budget, you know, I remember one, it wasn't very long ago, it was the last year, when things changed again and the budget was, you know, my budget, the IDA budget in April was like wrong. You know, it's different. You know, the ABO I asked, it was like, well, it wasn't significant changes, well, this is, you know, so maybe it'd have to re-ask them and see what they want. You know, they go back in, they have to let you go back in anyway, so you have to ask, even if you want to, they have to reopen it, but, so, but all that could be ferreted out with your budget work on it.
Right on. We'll handle it. I do want to report to the board that we did receive the $130,000 from the county. I did requisition it. It was one of my first official acts after I said to Mr. Federici, are we good to voucher? He said, I don't see why not, and they processed it fairly quickly. So the check has been received and Ron did put it in the bank. So there's a few extra dollars in the bank that wasn't there a couple weeks ago.
Get cleared, Ron.
I have a check.
That's 2023, the two payments due in 2023, is that what that money covers?
As far as I know, it covers the 2023 commitment. What I planned on doing was to voucher again in July of next year, which is the beginning of your new fiscal year. And that would be year 2.
You might, for our year's, of course, difference in fiscal year difference in the county, so I mean, I don't have a problem with it, but you might want to check out what it's 44 equal.
That's why I'm asking, is it January and June's 2023 payment that they just paid, or is it June's and July?
I don't think they look at it that way. I think they look at it under their fiscal year that in 2023, they have made a $130,000 commitment. What I do have to do is get more clarification on that. And the county administrator and I have had a hard time connecting. He's been out for the last week and a half or so. So that is a question that I definitely want to ask.
Because it's a biannual payment, right? So we can technically we can voucher in January probably. If it's their 2023 fiscal year payments.
I will get the details of that and report back.
Cool.
Any other discussion?
It is an interesting thought, though, if we should carry a due from on the balance sheet for the 5-year commitment or how that works. Particularly since they have a, 60-day opt-out, so I don't know. I don't
Would
know.
you
how-
get on an annual basis, would you? I mean, do you have a receivable that in your current year, as of today, let's say,
You'd have-
that you're doing for 5 years, that let's say year 3?
You have a short-term and long-term receivable, right? Anything less than 1 year is a short-term due from, anything
Yeah,
more
okay,
than a year would
okay.
be the long-term
Yeah,
due.
yeah.
I agree with Brenda. I think you
Yeah.
hit it, but I think,
Yeah.
I mean, I'm relating it to the housing audit. They just took a lease from people upstairs from me and they capitalized it. So 2027.
Well, that's a little bit.
And anyway, I don't know what they'll do with this, and they haven't really.
That's a little bit different because Gatsby's come out and said that that nonprofits have to account for their leases differently.
Right.
And so they have to have them in the asset and the liability side of things. They generally cancel out and they will change from year to year as the lease payment is made. I think that's a little bit different than what Ben's talking about, but I think overall the concept is pretty similar. And we'll dig into it.
But that's an important point. I'd like our financials to disclose that, so the world knows, theoretically, who's ever interested in looking at these things, knows that there's a commitment that we're booking.
Right.
And so don't come by and say anything different or think there's anything different with respect to that commitment.
Has the original MOU ever been changed? Or we've gotten a legal opinion since Bill Federici stated in the Board of Supervisors meeting that the MOU is not worth the paper it was written on.
And the communications I've had with the chairman of the board is that the county is willing to make the commitment. They did cut a check for $130,000 and we did put it in the bank. And then when Ron checks to see if it's cleared, then I know that we'll be in good shape. So I think we have to take actions at this point that they're committed to it. They've also committed to additional funding to the IDA for health insurance. Motion 228 from the August meeting. So we will talk about that a little bit later on in the meeting, but the commitments have been there thus far and I haven't heard anything otherwise. In my old position here in Schoharie County, we did used to joke that says, they're only as good as the next motion, but that's true of just about anything, no matter what level of government you're looking at. But since I've been here anyway.
Just to be clear, that motion was made, I think, in October or November of 2022. And then it was rescinded and all sorts of conditions were placed on it. I feel much more comfortable if we had a clear understanding and an MOU and maybe even a county board action saying that this is the memorandum of understanding that we have with the IDA.
I have a meeting with the county administrator Monday at 1 p.m. Hopefully he's able to keep that, and I will bring that up as something. We are going to have to probably do something amending the MOU anyway to account for how the additional support for health insurance. Maybe we can piggyback off of that and add some stronger language. I'll see what I can do about that.
Okay.
Any other discussion? All good points. So motion to recess the audit committee?
I'll make that motion.
Can we get an approval?
Oh, okay.
First, sorry about that.
Sorry.
I'll move the approval of the auditor's report.
Is there a second? All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Hearing none.
Now, we can go ahead and adjourn, sir.
Motion to adjourn the audit committee? Second?
Aye.
All in favor?
Second. No.
Aye.
Aye.
Hearing, motion approved.
Okay, we resume the full board IDA meeting, 9:42 for the record.
Next item on the agenda.
Accept this.
Oh, I'm
Yeah,
sorry.
we're on report,
Right.
report committees. Yep.
Motion to accept the audit committee's report.
Somewhat.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
All opposed? Hearing none, motion approved.
Mr. Chairman, I don't believe governance committee met.
Okay. Unfinished business.
Okay, first item on unfinished business is UTEP. Yesterday, Julie was kind enough to provide a red line copy. Thank you very much for that. I did forward it to the board for review. I'm coming in on that awfully late. I just know that that's a bear to tackle. And so personally, I want to express my thanks to Julie for tackling that, so I don't have to. I
It
do-
is part of the policy to review in June, so
Correct.
it's on your list in June.
Yeah, and next steps, as I understand them, are for me to send that along with a letter to the taxing jurisdictions for comment, which I will do as long as the board is okay with me to do that.
And they have 30 days to respond, and they also have the opportunity to present their case if they disagree with any of the items. And then the other discussion was whether or not this board, or you're going there, Rhonda, for the
Yeah, go
public
ahead.
hearing.
That's
Yeah,
fine.
go ahead.
The question is if the board wants to schedule a public hearing to solicit additional comments or give the taxing jurisdictions an additional avenue to present their positions.
I don't know that the taxing jurisdictions have to present in public hearing. I
No,
think
it
they
just gives
could
them another
come
option
here.
if they wanted to go there instead of here. That's how Joe presented it to me, so.
Why would we want to have the public meeting? Why and not have them deal with the public meetings? In other words, if I understood your point, is we have, the question is whether we want to schedule public hearings on this?
Correct.
Do we have to?
It is not required now.
Should we do anything that's not required?
Well, in the event that people from the public want to show up and oppose the changes to the policy, I would assume,
Well, don't they have other avenues to do that, or didn't?
not necessarily. I mean, it's not going to be a public hearing for each municipality for their relative constituents to
And they're
their
not-
grievances and then come back and their grievances to us, right? So it would be the only mode for the public in
So that-
general to come.
So that's a reason to do it then.
Yeah, I mean, I'm not
Okay.
opposed to doing it. I don't think it's
Right.
going to cause any harm.
Yeah, no, that's the question. I mean, if there's a reason to do it, if there's no reason to do it, we shouldn't do it. But you suggested a reason to do it, I have no problem.
I assume there would probably be no one that shows up, or maybe one person for the county would, you know. I think it's,
We did a public hearing at the Schoharie Town Hall a couple of years ago. Remember that? And it was you, me, and Sarah. I forget what.
I don't know.
American Recycling, and yeah,
Yeah, yeah.
so, and I think it's advised by your council to host the public hearing, and it's an opportunity to say we did host a public hearing.
Right.
That we proposed changes to the policy, and we did solicit that feedback from elected officials and the community.
Yeah, and I think we could have it like at the Jefferson Town Hall or something.
I'd like to have it in Sharon Street.
Joe,
Do anything.
Joe, how to get there.
It's a tour, the SCCRC.
So I'm hearing that the will of the board is to have a public hearing on this. Is that what I'm hearing?
Yes.
Okay.
I think
a
that's
motion?
just a. Why not? Yeah.
Can't hurt to have it.
Yeah. I move that, and at the appropriate time, the IDA host a public hearing on the new UTEP policy,
I'll second that.
which probably, this is not part of the motion, but since the taxing jurisdictions have 30 days to respond, we would probably do it after that period of time.
Any further discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. All opposed? Hearing none, motion approved. Any further discussion on UTEP
was the motion just for the public hearing or for the actual acceptance of?
public hearing?
Right,
I don't know if we can accept it until after the taxing jurisdictions have their say.
Got it. got it. Okay. That makes sense.
Any further discussion on UTEP? Land sale.
Okay, Mr. Chairman, several items to discuss here. The potential sale of 309-349 Minnow Springs Road, indications are that that sale is going to move forward. I received an email from their territory manager saying they are ready to move forward. And that was confirmed by council as well. So although I don't have any details as far as when the closing date is or anything, we have a contract. They say they're going to honor the contract, and I believe we're going to move forward on that. I don't know if Ron and Julie have anything else to add on the subject.
Were there were some dates and things in the original contract, what were those?
October, at the middle of October is supposed to be the closing date.
So we need to, yeah, so they have 3 weeks to close, basically.
I think it was 15, we're really in the middle. I mean,
Mhm.
yeah, date, exactly.
Yeah.
They have 18 days to close. Which means the attorneys need to work probably both states to get some docs together. I don't know where they are relative to running title.
Title, that was supposed to be done in September, and I didn't get a response from Colin. I don't know if you have been asked.
They really haven't been very forthcoming about any information. When I say that, I mean the backyard outfitters. I did get an email that says they're going to move forward, and that's the only communication we've had. I think Colin's reached out a couple of times and just hasn't gotten much of a response back.
Yeah, we wanna close this thing. So its title is outstanding. Did we give them surveys and all that stuff during due diligence? Anything we have relative to,
Yeah,
I mean, due diligence
they
is
didn't-
closed, right?
They didn't ask me for anything, quite frankly.
Yeah, so, all right, so, okay.
They should do their own surveys anytime.
Sure. Well,
stuff like that.
Typically with a survey, if we have one, we provide it and they can update.
They can update it.
But we would give them everything we have relative to the property due
Yeah,
diligence.
yeah.
Do we know if they have submitted with the village for their plans and all that, or they're just buying it on spec at this point?
I have heard nothing about any kind of.
They had talked previously to Mike Piccolo,
Yeah.
so he'd been in contact with the village even before they made the offer.
Mhm.
Don't know if they've done any specific plans. But I
If they have
know,
enough to,
I think they felt comfortable with what Mike said,
sure.
on that end. And then, but I haven't heard since that.
Okay.
That's been a while.
But Fonda, you said that the fellow that we've been chatting with over the past has confirmed to you that they do want to proceed.
Yeah, he says he's ready to move forward. That is the quote from the email.
And they're in the contract.
So what he didn't say was, we're backing out of the contract,
Okay.
or we found an issue that questions whether the contract can move forward or not. He said, ready to move forward. What I was hoping the email would say is, we are in the process of moving towards closing, but that is not how, that's not how he put it. But now I have his cell phone and although I don't want to get in the way of the attorneys, the attorney did say, did you take a shot at reaching out to him? Because I haven't heard back, so I did. And I did get an answer, so.
Okay.
And the inspection period expired September 15th, and it was 30 days after the inspection period, which is Sunday, April 15th. For the closing, that means the actual contractual closing date should be Monday, October 16th.
So relative to administrative things behind that, if that date holds, we gotta get everything out of that building, right?
Yeah.
All the files and whatever else is going on. There's discussions about this stuff.
Yeah, I've got that under other, but I mean, we can discuss it now if you want to. Well, no, it's actually on the agenda under other, but we can move forward to that as long as you brought it up. Chet had a great idea of contracting with Sarah Nickel to oversee the IDA document relocation is what I'm calling it, and assist with some other logistics. She knows where everything is. As a matter of fact, I talked to her on the phone yesterday and she said, well, if you're looking for that document, you got to go upstairs and it's in this file cabinet on the second drawer about halfway back. So to me, she's the perfect person to help coordinate that. And so I was going to mention, so we'll mention it now, us kind of having an agreement with Sarah to move forward to do that now that we know or we suspect that that's going to move forward and we really only have about 28 days or so to get that done. Maybe hiring her to be able to do that. She was looking for $30 an hour. I didn't think that was unreasonable, given her level of expertise and the knowledge of knowing where each piece of paper happens to be. I'm not sure exactly how many hours it'll take to do that, and we'll also probably have to hire some, as Chet puts it, muscle to move file cabinets. There's some desks in there too that need to be disposed of. So that there are going to be some costs to getting that basically cleared out. But I was hoping that the board would sanction an agreement with Sarah to be able to do those, do that task.
Do you have room here for files?
They are going to find us space here. I reached out to Gus MacGyver, and he simply just forgot to follow through with it. So it's back on his radar now, and he'll find us something. Obviously, it's not going to be in here because we just have the two offices. Maybe a file cabinet could go, one in each office would be okay, but we have a significant number of boxes. So they're going to find us something on campus. If by chance they can't, I'll find us a place. Maybe I can piggyback with the county. They've got a big space here right in Colesville.
Do we have a document retention policy? I seem to remember looking at that. And for how long do we have to retain?
We do have a policy.
Okay.
I have flipped through it, but I haven't memorized it yet. But my guess would be like any retention policy, there are different documents that have different lengths of retention, and some of them are permanent that you can't be disposed of. But that'll be a good opportunity for us to go through and clean a little house if we can.
Okay.
And secured, there's financial information and such that should be.
Yeah. Well, when I say dispose of it, we'll definitely shred it and follow all the.
Even stored on campus.
Oh, yeah, no, it will have to be locked. So they're aware of that already. Absolutely. Yeah.
Any further discussion?
I mean, I think we have to agree on where the office is gonna be before we determine moving the files here, right? So I guess discuss that at some point, but
So we'll,
Can we digitize some of this stuff? Does it have to be paper records?
A lot of times you actually have to retain, even when you digitize, you have to retain the paper record.
signatures and such.
Yeah.
Yeah, there's probably notarized stuff, sealed stuff that needs to be kept.
That could be a second part of this project. Maybe the first part is let's get it out and maybe sort through some of the stuff that we don't need to keep. And maybe the second part is digitizing.
And going forward, digitize.
Do I have a motion to get into an agreement with Sarah?
How about the actual ones do the heavy lifting?
I don't
Can
have
somebody move Ron down to Main Street or East Main?
Yes, we had two guys that can handle some of it. I mean, for instance, the debts I have is the idea. It's a bear. I mean, it's huge. I don't even know where you're gonna put it. I mean, maybe it's gotta be disposed of. But there's certainly that and a couple filing cabinets are fairly good size.
Does backyard want any of the filing cabinets and desks and stuff before we just throw them out?
I can ask them.
Because they may use this as an admin office or something, so if they want us to leave stuff, it might make it a little easier for all of us.
I mean, as far as office goes, not very lot, not a lot of stuff, but I mean, but there's enough that you're gonna have to get a couple guys.
Anyone,
Three guys.
so whoever moves the files, you're just gonna make sure they have insurance related stuff, right? We got workers' comp and auto insurance and all that stuff that.
Any further discussion?
No, I think it's fine to hire Sarah, and since we have absolutely no idea how much somebody's gonna charge to put it in the back of a pickup truck and move it someplace, I think it's fondest discretion.
So that's the motion.
Yes.
Is that the motion?
Is there a second?
I'll second that.
All in favor?
Aye.
All opposed? Hearing none, motion approved.
Thank you. Second property on Mineral Springs Road, I don't have any additional updates on that. I think Julie in the last meeting did a good job of explaining kind of where we are. So if Ron or Julie have any additional comments, I haven't heard anything on that property at all.
No, they signed a letter of intent in June. There was discussion about the financing contingency. This board had agreed to extending the financing contingency. Then they balked at the notion that they had to close. They felt like they had to close. I think the concern was how to negotiate that so that we didn't lose the deal and that this board didn't feel that it was holding a property off the market for somebody that may or may not close at the end of the day. So Colin was supposed to be working on cleaning up that language. I think I sent a note 3 weeks ago.
They're still
while you were
working.
here.
The
Yeah.
only thing I've seen is they're still working on it. I'm not so sure this is high up on anybody's radar at this point. But I will continue to ring the bell on it and get people to move on it.
And the prospective buyer is anticipating a grant award by USDA, and that's not expected until probably a few more months.
So do we have any dates on the sale?
There's not a contract on this sale. You have a letter of intent. So they're still negotiating the contract for the sale.
Unfortunately, attorneys kill deals more than they actually get deals done. We need some like time is of the essence stuff with these guys, and maybe we're fine for you to try to push this directly with the organization rather than letting the attorneys take 3 weeks to respond to an email and months of LOI negotiations. That's totally ridiculous. If everybody's interested in buying the property, we should get to a contract and get moving, and if they're not, then we should put it on the market.
Real estate
Real estate.
transactions like these are not
This is
contentious.
ridiculous.
So your
It shouldn't
point
happen.
is well taken.
It
You
shouldn't
know,
take
if
this-
everybody agrees, let's just move forward,
Yeah.
you know. Normally, yeah.
I will reach out next week I'll reach out this week and probably meet with them next week and see if we can get them to commit more fully to it.
Thank you, yeah.
No, I think that's an excellent idea. Okay, so that's that one. Shad Point. We continue to wait for comment from the seller's attorney regarding the draft purchase option agreement that was sent to them on August 30th. The attorneys have followed up twice, once on the 14th of September and once on the 26th of September. Our attorney believes that there are some health issues involved that are delaying things. But that's where we are on that. In addition to Shad Point, I would like to direct your attention to tab 3 in your packet. This is an MRB addendum that states 2023 and 2024 rates for services that they would provide. This comes into play because we received an invoice from them, and I forwarded it to the ARPA folks to process. But the only document we have are 2021 rates, and obviously we're in 2023 and soon to be in 2024. And they require something that allows the current rate to be paid. So I am providing this document for review in the hopes that the board will provide a motion to approve and direct the executive director to sign the rate sheet so that processing can move forward.
This is for work on an hourly basis, right?
Correct.
Yeah,
Yep.
we've contracted them on a lump sum, right?
There are two parts to that contract. One is the lump sum for the cost benefit. There's a second portion of that contract that allows them to
Different, so it's not related to Shed Point. This is something that you've had otherwise
Yeah,
in
well,
place for the
initially it
MRB.
started- Yes, it started 3 years ago. I mean, it had nothing to do with this at the time. It was our cost benefit program.
Got it.
Yeah.
Relative to pilots and things like that. Okay. I mean,
But it will have to be monitored.
oh, yeah, absolutely. But I didn't want to sign off on the invoice without you seeing the new rates and being okay with us moving forward with the new rates.
It's been pretty simple back to Bay. I haven't used it too much. To date, you know, I mean, I think. You and I played around with it, not played around with it, used it once with a potential project, but that's where it started.
Are we, as I recall all of this, most of this work has already been done before.
So what's
This should not take that long for them to do. So it's the 2023 rates that'll probably apply.
So I think, just to clarify, what fund is presented is separate from Shed Point. There is a $5,000, as I last knew, there was a $5,000 agreement as it relates to Shed Point. In the past, Ron has had agreement with MRB Group to assist with pilots and to be available
okay.
for service. So this
Gotcha.
is what this is reflecting.
All right.
Unrelated to Shed Point, unless Fonda chooses to use their services at his discretion, an hourly rate to advise on components of
Thanks for
that.
clarifying. I'm going to take a mulligan to the new guy on this one.
Yeah, so I think that, I think there are two things. I think this is something Ron had kind of on standby if he had a deal come
I see.
forward.
Okay,
And then the $5,000 is project specific
okay.
for ARPA. And the way Ron and I use this path is that mapping, the distressed census tract to identify those areas that could qualify for pilot agreements because of the conditions of the area versus the nature of the project. So we used them in that respect. They did clean up, they worked with, they cleaned up one of the other pilots as well. I think that was being anticipated. So separate from project Shed Point specific.
Thank you.
All right, so do we actually need a a motion to do this, or this is just for information?
If you want to make a motion, otherwise, if you're okay with me just signing it, I'll be happy to just sign it. I didn't want to sign it without us going through the board and at least you understand as poorly as I explained it, but thank you, Julie, for clarifying. I didn't want to do something that the board wasn't aware of in month one.
I have no problem with the rates. I think there's other folks who do similar work, and I think at the end of the day, this is probably an applicant cost and not an IDA cost. That's my experience doing these things, is that our IDAs have asked us in the past, provide us with a cost benefit study, tell us, what the benefits of your projects are, and so on and so forth. And then we, my previous life as an applicant to an IDA, would provide the study and pay for the study, so. But I have no problem with the rates.
So you have no problem with the rates.
No, I mean, they didn't seem to go up from, I think it's $20. It's not a killer these days. I mean, I know it's a lot of money to most people, but that's the price of doing business these days, unfortunately. All right, so as long as the board's okay with it, I'll sign that and get it off and things should be okay there. That does bring us to the next point, which is the discussion that I'm coming in a little bit later. But I think I've been brought up to speed thanks to Julie and Ron, as far as putting together an RFQ for a preferred development for Shad Point. And I don't think that the RFQ is complete yet, but I still want to make sure that the board wants to move forward on that and to see what process we want to go through to make that happen and get that published and out there as soon as possible.
So can somebody help us, you or Chad, what exactly is our agreement at this point? Like written agreement with anybody for our role in the project?
Well, we signed off to be the lead agency, basically,
Right.
and
That was $1 million.
right, $1 million.
Right.
And in lieu of the town. And I think that's all that letter was at that point.
That's all
So is that
that's all I
where-
remember.
Is that where we are right now? So I'm trying to remember, I think we discussed going back, asking them to parse out 100K and 900K, right, of the ARPA money.
Right.
So we didn't trip whatever that administrative fee stuff was relative to overseeing the money. The idea would still get paid $100,000, $900,000 towards the project, right?
Yeah.
That's, I think, the last conversation we had. I don't know if that went anywhere, but
No,
then,
that did.
I mean, we read the article that says there's a 3-man committee working on the project. We also just approved minutes that said I was the point person for the IDA. So I'm confused as to what is actually happening and who actually controls this process.
Those are all
Good
good questions,
questions,
yeah. I don't believe that there's any 3-person committee that's been active or appointed. I believe that is an idea, a concept out there. And I'm coming in on this late, so. I'll give.
Nothing with you yet. Right, you're in the same boat as the rest of us.
I think the conversation that I had with the supervisor from Coviskill, he had said that just talking about this RFQ and how it would move forward. I don't know if I sparked any thoughts on this, but I just said, when we did the Peter Fairweather RFP, we put together a committee to evaluate the submissions, right? And I know I was on it, Wendy Gilman from the college was on it, Alicia Terry was on it. There was at least one other person, and I just don't remember who that was. And basically, we were kind of a vetting. We made 2 piles. I remember doing it distinctly as these were possibles, and these were ones that we just didn't think would be good to do that. And maybe I misspoke and said, here's an idea, and then he took it and ran. I'm not sure, or if he had the idea in his head. It does make sense to put a group of people together to do an initial vetting. To bring to the IDA board, but that is completely a decision on how the IDA board wants to address, going through the submissions for the RFQ. Certainly, I won't pretend to have the most real estate experience in the room, so certainly I'm more than happy to defer or at least seek professional guidance when my knowledge base isn't there. So however the IDA board wants to address this and work through it, I think is the best way to go about it. I mean, we could get 30 applicants or you could get 3. And I guess that would depend on what the workload would be.
Well, shouldn't we wait until we get closure on the 10%?
So there is closure.
There is closure, right?
We have
I
it.
think it's a no.
To go, right?
And then, well, I was not involved in reading
So
either.
if it's a no, so we do this without
Why not?
earning any
Am
fee?
I wrong?
As far as I know, it was a no. But I'm gonna bring it up again because I think that if the IDA board is, or the IDA is gonna do work and it's gonna add to the workload of its one lone staff person, to the point where we may have to bring in, or will make to bring in some kind of an admin person,
That's
you know,
right.
those costs are gonna have
We
to,
talked about that.
yeah.
As part of that.
I don't think
$100,000.
they actually didn't say no. They said you can't use ARPA funds.
Yes, I do want to clarify. Yes, there was
So that's
ARPA, it was ARPA related. and
There's some
whoever
other
the boss
way.
is over there.
The town of Cobleskill or the county can compensate the IDA for this work.
Supervisor Hempel, he was opposed, or he questioned whether we needed even to do this, right, the RFQ. If I recall, you mentioned it, Julie, and he says, well, do we really need to do this? I remember that discussion at a meeting.
Yes,
could that
and
be-
so there was an ad hoc committee that was working on this, and it was Supervisor Hempel, Ron, the 2 of you were at the last meeting, Alicia,
Hey.
Terry, Shane, and I.
But
Yeah.
anyway,
You were at the meeting back
Oh,
in
the
the
board
August and September. No, not the board meeting, the ad hoc committee meeting to talk about Shad Point. Yes.
Okay.
So, and that was just in the meeting minutes that were just approved. And there was discussion about whether or not the $5,000 required procurement and whether or not the RFQ was necessary.
Right,
Yes, so your memory is correct,
Right,
Joe,
right.
in that conversation. This board at our last meeting said, you know, $5,000 doesn't require procurement because we've had a working relationship with the MRB and because of the small amount. The allocating or working through that $1 million does require a public process and a public procurement process, thus the RFQ. Subsequent to that is when we read in the paper that there was another committee that was created as it relates to this. And the question about who manages the process has been ongoing, frankly, since the beginning. You know, the county has allocated, that letter reads pretty strongly, it's the IDA's responsibility to manage that $1 million to get it encumbered and spent, encumbered by the end of this year and spent by 2026. The county technically views it as encumbered by nature of allocating to the IDA. So yes, Peter's recollection is, as I recall it, that we had originally asked for 10% of the ARPA allocation. We got, the answer was no to that. The discussion then was, and I think we had the conversation early when you started, is we need to ask for 10% out of other funds, which is what I think Ben's implying is the notion of don't let it go. This is additional work above and beyond normal course of action. And grateful that the county has provided $900,000, $1 million to work with, to attract industry to Schoharie County, but it is additional work for the IDA. Absolutely. Albeit that everybody's agreed that the IDA is the right entity to manage this process. But I think it's still a little foggy on who's leading and who isn't.
would we need to hire or engage rather any expertise beyond in order to vet out some particulars in this project? And so would we have to pay for another engineer or we have to pay for another?
That's what those dollars are likely to be used for, are all of the pre-development studies,
Yes.
preferred developer work, that sort of thing. The recommendation was to have, instead of the IDA inching along with those consultants at its side, kind of walking through the process, its first time, is to get a developer, I think Ben
Right.
articulates this the best,
Right.
get a developer at your side that really understands the process, knows how to expedite the process, and has an end game in sight where they can turn the property around. That's their incentive to
And who pays
progress
for that? Who
expeditiously.
pays for that developer?
All of that is thought to be paid through the ARPA allocation, correct?
And the RFQ will include an opportunity for that preferred developer to be first in line to buy the land.
Right,
Once the process is complete, we had issued an appraisal, or we're going to have an appraisal issued with an as-is value and as stabilized and complete value after diligence is done on the land. And that way we knew what a shovel-ready piece of land would look like and sell for at that site. We could include that in our RFQ to the preferred developers. So they can come in and say, we're happy to work with you. We want an option to buy the land when you're done. We'll streamline the process. You pay for all the diligence. Right, so that's kind of where we are with it. But I think if we don't have one person who is responsible, by one person, I mean, like, if it's the IDA, you, right, we'll all be here to support you, but if we don't have one person who's responsible, no one is responsible. And as with anything, this is going to sit, and it's not gonna move, and it's not gonna be efficient. We're gonna have lots of people with different opinions who don't know much about real estate, giving opinions about things that aren't relevant to the process, so we really need to determine who's gonna handle the project. And if it's not us, that's okay, but, and we'll all move on.
Well, we signed off and said we were gonna leave this.
I assumed the same until I read the article, which, I mean, doesn't sound the same, I don't know.
should there be a memorandum of understanding about just that point? So this is the project, this project is gonna be sole responsibility for administrating this project. Is it gonna be on the IDA, or is it gonna be on the county board of supervisors, or is it gonna be on?
I thought that was part of what we signed already. That we
But
had,
no, that we signed, what about the board of supervisor, Hempel, or?
Perhaps what we do is have found a set of structure for how to proceed with the process. It sounds like the IDA board's interested in managing the process, interested in the $1 million relationship with the county. The RFQ has been approved by this board. It sounds like it's acceptable to the others at this point. There still is the IDA going to receive some sort of compensation for managing the process, which still needs to be determined. And assigning roles and responsibilities might be helpful for everybody to understand where they can participate. I think the county's eager to be part of it, right? And they're putting the dollars for it. So there's a role for them. The article certainly preempted and kind of clouded the process a little further, but Supervisor Hampel has a role to get his town ready to move forward in this sort of development, be it his planning board, his zoning that's incomplete and such. The county chairman certainly could have a role in reviewing RFQ responses, but who's managing the process? And I think, and how is that entities being compensated are still questions that are unclear. And I think, Fonda, you're certainly capable of organizing all of that.
Well, thank you for those kind words. I guess we'll find out, won't we?
Yeah.
Let me just bring up another thing here, and it's sort of murky, this whole thing. If we push the county for, we want $100,000 to manage this process, we open ourselves up to oversight by the county in this process, which if we don't ask for the money and we're responsible for the expenditure of up to $1 million on it, then we're the only people managing the process. There's no loophole for somebody to sneak in, which they will do. Don Airy talks about oversight. Oh, well, oversight here and oversight with this. No, this is not Schoharie County taxpayer money. These are ARPA funds from the federal government. And well, certainly the county needs to be included and informed. I think we may be better off if we want to get this done effectively and efficiently of not pushing the point of the $100,000 payment fee from the county for doing it.
Did we include a percentage or something in the sale of the contract for the IDA? I know we had discussed at one point how any proceeds above and beyond the input would be split among.
The
various
IDAs, yeah, so they would only receive, the buyer's portion is 20 or 25%. So there's an assumption that the IDA as the contracting body would receive the difference, right? That's how I would understand it. It doesn't read that it goes anywhere else.
Okay,
So
maybe that's worth addressing at this point too. I don't know.
Yeah,
So I don't know if you're following. So
the purchase option.
let's say it costs us $1 million to do this, right? All in, it's like whatever, $1.2 million, all right, for the project. We sell it for $2 million at the end to this preferred developer, the $800,000 profit. What happens, right? 25% goes to current landowner, all right? So now we're down to $600K. How does the 600 get allocated? Or is it IDA funds? If it's IDA funds, fine, forget the 100,000.
Exactly.
But I think it's worthwhile to understand where those dollars.
There are a lot of loose ends to this.
Well,
I mean,
that's
you
the
know,
problem. You have
that's-
to really start thinking through these things.
That's right. Ben's absolutely right here.
That's
I
a great
don't-
point, but
yeah. I don't see, given the logic of the federal legislation, that somehow this money would flow back or flow to the county. The whole idea is to expend the money. And if the IDA has spent a lot of time and energy on the project, then at the end, we're rewarded for that.
Mhm.
and supposing we sell it for 800,000 and we lose money, nobody's gonna,
Hey,
is anybody gonna make us whole?
It's the
No,
loss of the ARPA money. It's not necessarily loss of our own capital. So,
that's true, sorry.
yeah, Joe, this is a capitalist
Yeah.
society.
but,
Risk.
Yeah, okay.
but,
But then that's all of your administrative work. That's.
Yeah.
but theoretically, high level, if you're taking a raw piece of land and getting it approved for shovel-ready development, it should be worth more than the
Sure,
inputs.
sure.
So,
I hope so.
Just thinking.
Well, maybe we should structure that in. At least
I think it's worth determining, making sure everyone's on the same page. So
I
that we're not
agree. All
having
these
a
loose ends.
major
I
issue 2 years
agree.
from now.
It was very interesting to read through the responses to the original request from Shane and the person that handles the ARPA accounting, where they said, look,
Steve.
ARPA rules prohibit the kind of thing that you're asking. They might have been eager to do it, but they can't do it. I can't then see that somehow the money is going to, if there's a profit, a significant profit, could go back to the county. It just, it just doesn't seem to, what they wanted to do, there were probably a lot of people who said, well, why don't we just take this money that we got and buy cryptocurrency or Amazon or something like that? And, we'll build up our own fund balances. So the whole idea is to just spend it as quickly and hopefully as efficiently as you can.
Well, that brings up a point. Why isn't somebody from the county here? I mean, here we are, talked about communications or the lack of communication sometimes. And we're talking on the agenda is this project that is tremendously important. And the county understands that. Do we invite the county or should we need to formally invite somebody from the county to be here? They should be at every meeting.
They may be. But I will say that give Fonda some time and organize
Yeah.
roles and responsibilities for the project, and I think that would help.
Very good.
everybody.
That's
That
what we
out
done.
more.
Yeah.
Right.
I think that's extremely important.
Right.
I would also say one of the reasons why you hired me was because I have a relationship with the Board of Supervisors and so much of that technical staff, right? So if I need to get Shane on the phone, I can send him a text message and he'll get back to me as soon as he can. So those relationships are already built. So I think when it's necessary to have the county come in and have a discussion, we will be able to do that without any problems. But we should also be able to work behind the scenes offline to be able to make some of this stuff happen.
I mildly disagree, not strongly mildly disagree, because if they're at these meetings and a point comes up, they can address the point and save us a lot of discussion time. And it makes them aware of everything we're doing. I mean, they gave us $130,000, so you should see how that money is being spent. You should see if there is anything here that requires their input, that at least they're aware that we need their input. So
Well, it may not be a bad idea in the future to ask for Corsa.
Yeah,
If there's
someone,
a specific point that needs clarification, Corsa would be the right person.
Oftentimes, however, we may have a question and that question might need to be researched anyway, or the board might have to actually make a commitment one way or the other on that. So sometimes having somebody here, I think, is good, but you may not get answers as quickly as you may.
But you get awareness is my point. You may not get the answers, but you get so that person takes it back to the county and says, this is what's going on, this is what they're doing. There's $1 million. They're talking about keeping some of it, so we can get an awareness on their part, but that's.
Well, here's a thought. The county is planning on hiring an economic development coordinator. I understand that they have a couple of applications of folks that are reasonable candidates, so maybe that's the role of that person to come to our meetings or Zoom into the meetings and that'll be a good way for us to start building a relationship with that person. So maybe that
That makes sense.
Yeah, that would be.
a little ways down the road because they still have to go through the hiring process, but maybe that's a way to get the county more involved and a good way to get this person up to speed on what could be a very important project for the county as a whole, not just county government or the IDA.
Father, are you invited to any of the economic development meetings at the county level?
I don't know if I'm invited, but I go.
There it is, there it is.
Yeah.
So you want to know what's going on that side, and they should have the same idea.
I'd imagine, I'll broach the subject with Corsa and maybe see if I can get him to set that as an expectation of the position. And I can't see why they wouldn't want to anyway, but, and with Zoom capabilities now, you don't have to leave the comfort of your own office.
As far as the RFQ is concerned, I'd like to nominate Ben to be on that subcommittee, whoever it is comprised of.
I think you were nominated last.
Yeah, that was.
When you left the room. So I don't know, right? When you left the room, so you
That's
couldn't say
right.
no. But,
I think
so,
that's
because it could be a lot of work.
That's what I'm saying, is that it's not just an RFQ committee that Fonda's trying to explain off the article. That's not all that needs to be done. But I think, is the IDA board managing the project, I think is number one question. Is it true that, Fonda, are you able to set up some ad hoc committees, and how do you want to structure the management of the project? And then this group has agreed to the RFQ. It sounds like you're doubling down on the RFQ, Chairman. Then there's a process to review the RFQ. So that's one small piece of the everyday work that has to go into this project. So it sounds like the IDA board wants to manage it. Sounds like there's some clarity on the contracting that we want to sort through. Sounds like there's roles and responsibilities for the partners, whether or not they're in everyday ad hoc, everyday management, or serving on an RFQ committee. I think there's a variety of different things that need to be sorted through.
And I think in terms of if there's some kind of a committee that reviews the RFQs, maybe reach out into the community. There's some really good people that live in Schoharie County that are not involved, they're not employed by the county or elected officials that can really take a deep dive into these things and come up with, with very good answers. One fellow, Paul Conroy, who lives in the village of Schoharie, very knowledgeable fellow. He and Ben are doing some work for Seek on similar kinds of issues. Paul would be a much better choice than somebody from the county, and there are probably some other people too.
Yeah.
Oh, well.
Does that make sense?
Sure, I've got all of it down. I'm sure that I'll rewatch the video just to make sure. And again, reach out for professional assistance when I'm lost, which means a text message, say, hey, Julie, can we set up a phone call?
And the RFQ is not complete, as Fonda said at the beginning. I am working on that and I will deliver that by the end of this week, the
Fantastic,
first draft.
much appreciated.
Any further discussion on SharePoint?
Not now, but I'm sure there will be.
Sure.
Reserving the right to bring the topic up at another meeting.
Ben, you've acquiesced into serving on such an RFQ committee?
Well, yeah, I mean, let's see what the answers to all the questions are.
I appreciate that. Sharon Spring.
I'm happy to say that we did receive insurance certificates, proof of insurance, so we can cross that off the list. The question still remains, are you letting them out of the lease and when do we start that the clock ticking, if you will. And I'll defer to both Ron and Julie on this because I really came in towards the end of it. But I understand they want out of their lease and they sent a letter, and I think this board said it would be okay, but they wanted to make sure that there was insurance coverage.
I don't think we have
Continuous
any
insurance coverage.
right to say okay or not, per terms of the lease, if they give us notice.
Notice.
Yeah, I agree.
Exactly
It's
right.
a matter of when it started, but there was a draft letter. I don't know if that went anywhere. To send to acknowledge their notice to vacate. Was that sent? Is that the reason you got the insurance?
Yeah, I thought Fonda sent that letter.
I didn't send a letter, no. But I will today.
I got to do it, I don't remember. I thought it was actually went out, but for some reason, I thought I got a copy of it in an email. Maybe it was just a draft and that's where it stopped. I did not do anything with it.
Okay, well, I'll have to dig into it. I didn't do anything with
I
anything.
know it's 120-day notice of the lease.
Mhm.
And at this point in time, we're well into that, just about no matter when the letter was written. We're certainly 60 days into it.
They had asked
If
for
not
the end of
more.
October, and I think that shorted it about 30
But
days.
yeah, I agree with that
Right.
quick assessment.
So
So it's been 90, at
do
the
you
end
want
of
to go
October.
90 instead of the 120, or you want to go with the full 120?
If they give us written notice, the lease is 120 days. You know,
I'll send them a letter that states that.
That's what we want, the terms of the lease.
Is the issue on the damage that was caused by runoff or whatever, is that?
That's separate, so I think Fonda's probably going there next. Are you?
I do have it on my list of things to talk about,
Okay.
but I don't think a lot of progress has been made on that. As far as, I haven't contacted the homeowner or the property owner that alleges the damage.
There's been, as far as I know, there's been no claim for property damage. We're waiting for Mark Bartholomew to give a proposal for the different options on how to correct the stormwater runoff issues. And we were looking for the insurance binder for Beekman, should there be a claim. So I think Mark probably hasn't responded. I was out of state all for a week last week. So I don't know that
No, I
Mark
gotta
has
do that.
responded.
Yeah,
Okay.
I only tried once, I go back and try again.
Okay,
The contractor had three options. He discussed with Julie, but we want We need to tidy him up as far as cost
Right,
and whatnot.
and he had not given any costs. So you're waiting for Mark Bartholomew to give you the cost estimates to correct the stormwater runoff. There's not been a claim, you have proof of insurance, and it's 30-day notice, and now reuse or sale of the property. I think were the items.
Yeah, no, that is true. Julie was kind enough to put together a form. It's tab 4 in your packet. To talk about either a purchase offer or an application for those who are interested in any property. Obviously, this one would be the one in Sharon Springs. And I just wanted to show you that that document has been completed and looks good as far as I'm concerned. And does require a $250 application.
Yeah.
I think there was one comment Joe made that we should accept checks. I don't remember. if-
Yeah, money
Yeah.
orders,
Yeah.
money orders, cash, you know, we should accept a check. That's the only.
And then they want.
What does the $250 do? I mean, it's a refundable $250, like. Is it, I mean, we're not asking them to put up significant assets to submit an application. It's probably more of an annoyance than anything, to be honest. I don't know if it really moves the needle.
But does it give you more serious offers?
Yeah,
I don't know. I mean, does it for $250 of refundable $250? No, I don't think so. I don't know.
What do you think?
that's the intent, and I think, I
I guess it was
don't have any,
unrefundable.
I have no problem with it.
Right.
But then I don't know if we should do that or not, but.
I wouldn't do a non-refundable fee, but I don't know if you necessarily need an app.
You don't want a fee at all.
I don't think it's necessary. My personal opinion, I don't think it's necessary. I think we're gonna-
Non-refundable?
For $250K, we're not, you know,
Right. Why can't I just go to a broker and make
if
an
we're
offer?
selling a $6 million building, it'd be
Mm-hmm.
different discussion.
And you're already asking for additional information than that you would if it were a straight street offer. So they're going to have to put in a little more time anyway to put the offer in, if you use this format. So,
I thought it was a well put together document. And if you want to send me the version of it, I can make any changes to it. So it sounds to me like the board would like to remove the $250.
I'm only one person, how do you get a?
Yeah.
Right.
And the cash and money order too?
Well, I saw that, this document probably started out life in 1958.
I think there were a handful of people we specifically wanted to reach out to about putting an offer in, yeah, so. I suspect one of them or a couple of them will be interested in making an offer.
Okay, so we'll remove the $250. Then we don't have to worry about
Money
sending
orders,
checks.
we don't have to worry about it.
Definitely refunding it and everything else.
Okay, and the board's opinion is to sell the property as opposed to release, is that the direction?
I would like to sell it. I don't want us to be in a position of being landlords or.
Get more important stuff to do.
Right.
Agree, we have better use of the funds.
Okay, move forward on that, very good.
Any further discussion on Sharon Springs Courthouse?
and so Fonda or Ron will follow up with Mark Bartholomew. So that's gonna happen. Okay.
Is,
And-
I'll try it once and maybe we can wait to introduce them to you.
Yeah,
I've been waiting on it for a while, right? I mean, do we have somebody else we can go talk to? I feel like,
There's somebody like Jim Collins, if he has, we can hold him too.
yeah.
Site work.
Yeah.
maybe we give him one more shot, and if he's not responsive, then we may go in a different direction. Just, you're right, that there is
I will
probably a
wait.
sense of urgency at some point.
But whether-
Couple months at least now, we've been talking about waiting on a bid from him.
Mhm,
Was that right, that long?
mhm,
Give them deadline.
September, gone.
mhm.
Need an estimate by the end of the, I mean, it shouldn't take more than
Yeah,
an hour to put it together.
We don't hear from you by,
We have our marching orders, Ron.
before hunting season, because I know he's a hunter, and he has game cameras, he's my neighbor.
Good
Mark
point.
Bartholomew is my neighbor, so. and
Go knock on his door.
Take them out.
Take your hard jacket with you.
he almost never see it's just one of these things that just.
Yeah, I just came to bump into you.
Yeah.
By the way, while I'm here.
New business.
Yes, sir. Tabs 5, 6, 7, and 8 in your packet, end of year documents, respectively, the annual report, investment report, assessment report, mission statement / performance measures report. I did circulate these yesterday afternoon in the hopes that some folks would take a quick look at it because there's a lot to digest there. But we do present these for your consideration and approval.
I'll just bounce around a little bit and make a point to talk about the annual assessment, which is number 7. I don't know why I put that first, I just did. You can see that in the middle of the page, the job goals and then the job reported per company. And everybody is fine. American, you get to the bottom, the last one, the newest one is the American Recycling. 10 jobs, 5 retained and 5 created. We're supposed to exist at this point in time, although the documents do say they have until the end of 24 to complete the project. Needless to say, however, it also says 10 jobs by this year. So they didn't meet, the standard job initially at this point. So I bring that to your attention because, we have a couple choices. Either say, well, the documents for construction said the end of 2024, so we're not quite there yet. So, obviously we'll give them more time and see, how it goes. Or you could go the totally opposite direction, say they're in the fall and, pull the plug. I'm not necessarily recommending that. I think they're in the midst of trying to get something done. I don't know where it's going to wind up. At one time, I thought it was going to be done and sold, and the pilot's going to naturally end. But then last I heard, they were trying to gain traction in financing.
Yeah.
To keep moving. And they even went to the town, I think, planning board, correct me if I'm wrong.
They did, they had to get
Renewed their building permit.
Their building permit.
So there's no building permit.
Correct. So I think they're still trying, so it's still active, and I wouldn't want to prematurely pull the plug. That's just my opinion.
I did talk to them last week and apparently financing for them was imminent. I don't think they had closed on financing, but I think they had a closing date for financing. So I didn't follow up after that. But it seems to me like they want to move forward. The model's a little bit different because I think they're gonna build space and rent it out as opposed to utilizing the space themselves. So I think their business model is shifting, and it might make sense. And I'm new to the game on some of this stuff, so I don't have full context, but it might make sense to give them some time to get their new plan and kind of ducks in a row and see what they can do on that. But obviously I defer to the board on that decision.
I will add, as far as the pilot goes, the taxes they're paying are based on what is assessed now, so they're actually paying what's there now. So there's nobody, so the community, the municipality's not losing
Okay.
until, or not, the pilot's really not doing much for them until there's something happens.
But so are they technically in default according to the terms of the pilot?
We could call them in default unless we say, for lack of a better word, it's okay, and we're gonna give you more time to.
Yeah, I mean, if they're technically in default and we want to give them more time, which I agree, we probably should based on what I'm hearing here. We should note that though.
Yes, yeah, yes.
That you're in default, but we're going to give you more time. It's just,
I agree.
Good practice.
I agree with that.
Absolutely.
yeah, just to make sure.
Just-
Gives them a sense
just
of
so they
urgency,
know.
maybe,
Yes.
also.
So we're gonna do
Not sleeping on this matter,
They're in default because of the job creation,
Just
but
the
the
job
construction was not due until that's kind of illogical.
Yes,
But,
it is. I
okay,
don't know how I got it, well.
yeah, right,
I think at least the 5 retained jobs when they were in the trucking model,
right.
But-
And they were utilizing the
Right, they're
space
still
without a
wouldn't have
building.
got the 10. or I guess that's why I got in there, but
So whatever correspondence I give them, we should give them through the end of 2024 to get to the jobs number. Does that make sense?
as far as the rest of the report goes, I mean, kudos to Inver Meadows, is getting up to 36 and 2/3 jobs, FTEs, based on all their businesses and their commercial enterprises, most of it store, but there is a couple little businesses that are also operating in their building. And of course, the gas companies have met, you know, their goals. But obviously Walmart has done very well and continues to do so. With the 519 FTEs versus the promised 350. So essentially it's the assessment on each company. And you see, well, Sharon Springs is terminated.
And I'd be remiss if I didn't thank once again the team of Julie and Ron for putting the reports together. I did have a small role. It was them probably 95% of it doing it, so I thank them.
Just the annual reports, that
Well, there's 4 of them there that requires reporting. So there's the annual report, the investment report, the assessment report, and then the mission statement / performance measures report. So there's 4 of them in there, all marked by your tabs. And when you've digested them and feel comfortable, hopefully we can vote for it.
Maybe I ought to just go over, just a suggestion on number 8, I guess, is for 7. The measurements goals for the 23-24. The second page of that.
Sure, the second page of that.
You know, if you need to read all of them, but
So this is probably one of the areas that I did have some, you know, put my my input in for no other reason than to make sure that I've got some goals of my own to make sure that I follow through on. And what I've been working on since really I've gotten here was really getting an office established. We really started with not much of anything. So, you know, just those logistics are sucking up a lot of time, but it's important to get that done so that we have some capacity to do the work that you're looking to do. We'll talk about some of those things coming up
but
soon.
just to make mention too, I mentioned the jobs previously, but the housing, there are up to 10 units being built, 4 of which have been sold. So 6 are on the market, so to speak. So they did add from last, I mean, it's gone from 6 to 10 over the course of this construction season. Until they keep selling them.
Yeah.
And as someone who's looking at houses, I've looked there too.
What's the mechanism for them to fall off the pilot and get on the tax roll? Do we get notice from?
We have to, every time they sell a house, we have to sign off.
Got it. So we're signing off on the release.
Sorry, yeah, and then an immediate, well, as soon as the next tax, it goes on the tax roll, once that happens.
And there's a specific allocation by number of units that changes the pilot payment to
Yes,
full
Yes,
taxes.
like in this case, there were 6 units not sold.
Hmm.
And it were times $2,000. I mean, so it's 2,000 a unit and divide, well, times whatever, like the school's like 54%. In there, 54.6 to be exact, since they just did it. So yeah, so it's 2,000 per unit for the year and then times whatever the rate is per municipality. Those percentages, Ben, came from the,
Yeah,
when we initially did the pilot, that's how they were broken down, but, and then the 4 that were sold, of course, are on their rolls, normal tax rolls. So it's better for the community and everybody, and once they're sold.
The houses are not yet.
For whatever reason, we take them off one at a time.
I would just say on page 2 of your measurement and goals, am I missing shed point in this? I don't see it. I think,
Yeah, I don't think it's spelled out specifically, but certainly it's, if you read between the lines, it's absolutely there.
but we do mention Middleburg, Meadows and Highbridge, so I think that's an important enough project.
Sure, we can add that.
I think it should be added.
and I think it, whether it has to be shed point or certainly reads to that business attraction, industrial traction corridor, advancing the corridor development initiatives of the county strategy, which I think would also read to the areas in the town of Schoharie that are eager for that. The corridor also reads to the distressed census tracts in the western end of the county. So there are some, I think the corridor focus might be best served in this, i.e. Shed Point, town of Schoharie, the areas in which IDA benefits can be mobilized in special case.
Yeah, and I think it'll be interesting this year, once we close on the sales in this land, how do we start to leverage the dollars we have? Because we have, a fair amount of capital to put to work, so how do we leverage it for economic development going forward? Do we look at sites? Do we try to put some of this money behind grant writing opportunities elsewhere? I mean, primarily towards infrastructure, which is, I think, the big need we're gonna need to try to figure out as a county if we're gonna see more projects come around on 88.
Which also reads to the community benefit fund concept that's in your new UTEP. If that's fully accepted eventually, is how do you create structure and priorities around the community benefit fund that the board has contemplated? Which is, again, what you're proposing.
Yeah, because that's where the real potential for expanding our assets is. It's not coming from the money from the county that's paying for salaries.
Right.
That's what they originally envisioned, somehow that all of us we'd have money left over from paying staff.
Mhm.
Well, the idea is to create revenue for the IDA so that we can do these things, and the land sales is one of the revenue. We should
Exactly.
explore others.
Sure, yeah.
Who else sees this report? Who sees these reports that you just,
Public, aren't they?
It goes on the website.
but it's on the website, does it go to the state?
Yes.
Yes,
So it does go to the
through the
state?
Paris
Yeah,
system,
right,
you have
right,
to
okay.
file it.
Yeah,
But
Mhm.
I think the answer is
The county gets the
the
audit,
people,
by the way.
the people in this room have read it.
well,
It may not be many more than that.
Yeah, yes, you have to actually want to.
Right.
But for this board, I think it's
We gotta do
important
it.
to pause and really think through what your priorities are for the
Yeah.
next
Yeah.
year.
Yeah, we have $1 million+ bucks we're sitting on, like,
Yeah.
how do we best leverage this money?
absolutely.
Do we go buy other sites and try to do, shovel-ready improvements and then sell them? Or do we put the money in the infrastructure to support some
Grant
stuff
writing
and
is
then
another one.
kind of recoup the money through CDA and all that?
Yeah.
IDA fees, I don't know.
But I
We're gonna
think
look at it.
one's fine to work through this and put some responsibilities and tasks associated with each of these. And itemizes it out, time-wise. Some of that structure will be there. But
Yeah.
all good points that need to be incorporated.
I think the measurement and goals, so you might think about funding, kind of raising them up a little. There's a business attraction, there's industrial development, there's, current maintenance of your existing, is the retention component. There's a reporting mechanism as an agency that's important. So as opposed to getting into the weeds at this level, maybe these are sub-bullets to those bigger categories and how you want to manage the organization.
Yeah, I think those are all great suggestions. As I digest and work through.
Have to digest it.
Well,
We'll talk more.
yeah, as some of, to follow up on Julie's point, as sales are completed, we hopefully begin to finish on a couple of pilots, or one in particular. We really are going to have significantly more money than we've had in the past. So we probably need to sit down and think about that. One of the questions I have is actually, what is our realistic budget for the current fiscal year, and what does it look like in the subsequent fiscal year? Because it's significantly higher than it has been in the history of the IDA. So we really need to look down, see what these real numbers are, and how much we can reasonably anticipate from other revenue sources in the near term and the medium term.
Yeah,
And I planned on providing a modified budget to you next month as some of these costs are becoming more clear. And a lot of them are gonna be one-time costs as we set up the office. And then I think there'll be some decisions that need to be made as far as additional capacity. I'm thinking, how we hire an admin person. Is that person part-time or full-time, and what the implications are for each? And I've been working on them, but there's just still a couple question marks. We'll answer some today, I think, and then some other ones are becoming more clear as time goes on. So to your point, that is a discussion we should have, and I'll at least get the ball rolling next month with a modified budget.
Okay.
The finance committee. would be good
Mhm.
front and center.
I remember when Julie first came to Seek and we discovered that we had this kind of jewel that had fallen into our laps. And she was doing an incredible amount of work all by herself. Tom Putnam and I just beat her up. We said, you have to hire people. And she resisted. She said, well, like a lot of times I feel like I can do it better myself. And that kind of thing.
It's my problem.
So we finally convinced her to actually begin hiring people. I say the same thing to Fonda. You need to hire at least one person, and that person's got to be good, and the person's got to be full-time.
Pay accordingly. Get what you pay for.
You're right about that. I agree with you.
You got a lot on your plate.
Yeah, he sure does.
Thank you for the comments. I'll amend that document and ask that you approve it as amended when we get to that point.
Further discussion.
I have a discussion, on tab, what is it? A question on tab 5. I don't understand some of the language. On page 3, tab 5, where we say negotiate with the county to build capacity in return for the county. To build capacity, I guess that's the term that I wondered about.
I think that's the language that's in your MOU
Is it?
with the
I'm pretty sure
county.
it is. I'm pretty
And
sure
it doesn't read anything about full-time employment. It reads build capacity.
Whatever that means.
Means
All right.
I think it's been interpreted as hire a full-time ID director.
it's been directed as hiring a full-time director.
And I discussed this with, we need to mention the fact that in 2000, this fiscal year, that we had a memorandum of a service agreement with Seek. And I don't remember seeing that in here. And I think that's,
It's the last paragraph.
where is it?
On page 3, it says,
Engaged.
build capacity was engaged to, bear and set direction.
Okay.
For some
All
initiatives.
I don't think it
Cooperative
would
management.
offend anybody if we actually mentioned Julie Picketty's name.
No, I think we don't have
May offend Julie.
to.
No, because it looks nice in the bullet points, it's important to that, for people to grab onto.
Wanda, were you just remote in 2 meetings or was it 3? Do you remember?
What's the months?
This is March and April, but I wondered about February.
Yeah, I was away January, February, March,
Yeah,
April.
so I think, were you, we should have gone to these meetings. I'll have to double check.
I would have been
I
there.
have her there.
No, not January,
So
December
You sure?
would have been my last.
you had her
And in the minutes.
in the
I did it
minutes, I
wrong,
think, where you were there. So we'll just make those minor clerical corrections to this. For Wanda's attendance being remote. We'll put you remote for January and February. And Peter, I think you were remote for one, and Chairman, I think you were remote for one as well.
Yeah, I think in June.
Yes, June 14th remote. And then Chairman, I think you were remote in March. Is that correct?
Yeah, I think that's when I had COVID.
Peter, you didn't have COVID, you went to Seattle or something, right?
No, I
That
was
doesn't really matter.
driving my daughter and grandchildren
Oh,
to
that's-
the airport.
That's right.
Remember that.
It's unusual for you not to be here.
Right.
Period.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. Any further discussion on this? End of year document. You're going to be making modifications and revisions to the, present back at, a future meeting.
No,
Let's do,
it's due 2 days from now.
yeah,
Not to interject, but I think, I mean, I'd like to have approval with the modifications. I think probably correct all the papers. If that's possible.
If you'll trust me to do them as amended, I've got good notes and I've got a video here to go.
I would trust you.
Do I have a motion?
So moved.
Second?
Second,
Any further discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
All opposed? Hearing none, motion approved.
Thank you. Item B under new business, I would refer your attention to tab 9. This is technology, equipment, and subscriptions. As I attempt to set up the office, we do need some technology. I've divided up our technology needs into 3 different categories, so there's 3 different charts on the piece of paper. The first is one-time costs, which are hardware. As you can see, there are 2 laptops with the monitors, keyboards, mice, etc. A firewall, a server, and a wireless unit. Ron pointed me to ICCI, and they've been really good about helping me get our technology up and running. As you can see there, the one-time hardware cost, if we were to go in this direction, would be just under $8,000. There, along with that, there are going to be some software needs. Some of them are paid yearly and some of them are monthly subscriptions. So what I did was I broke out the needs based on monthly subscriptions. And then at the bottom of the chart, you can see what the current budget implications would be from September to June, and then what annualized those costs would be. The first item I put QuickBooks, that may not be necessary, but I figured we'd put that in.
How do we do our accounting now? We don't use QuickBooks.
We use a very old version of QuickBooks, and we're gonna have to upgrade in some way, shape, or form. I don't know if QuickBooks Online is the way to go, or if we just buy a version. In talking with Lynn Lawyer, she prefers the second option, and she says that online QuickBooks isn't the best, and she's had trouble with it.
Yeah, I had trouble with it. Yeah.
But I did put it on here just as what it would be.
Is that online where you get a disc? Where you, if it's not the online, what are you buying?
You would buy a program. I don't know if you get discs or if you just download all of the.
So.
Plus, I think it's one for each set of books too, because it's almost like a subsidiary that's broken down, revolving loans in one, micro loans in another, generals in one,
Okay.
CRCs in one. Each one has a fee online.
Yeah, Ron's good about that. Yeah, we will probably end up going with a sold unit or a bought unit or a bought subscription as opposed to going online. But when I put this together, the online was what I thought we were gonna go with. So, and that's the most significant of the costs on subscription. So that number will go down. Your hardware number would go up. And I'm not sure what that cost is going to be. But as you can see there, Zoom subscription, Office subscription, and some of the different backup and virus protection licenses that recur on a monthly basis. It'll be roughly a couple of $100, somewhere between $200 and $300 a month. The budget implication for this year is going to be, somewhere between $2,000 and $3,000, and then the annual subscription somewhere between $2,700 and $3,200. The cost of doing business, but I didn't want to to go forward too much without making sure that the board understood what the costs were and at least verbally signed off on it, if not an actual motion. The big cost really is gonna be, we need to get some kind of a copier in here. I've gotten 2 different quotes for 2 different units. One is I'm cheap, you'll learn that I'm very frugal and thrifty. My wife calls me cheap, so that's what I use. A new unit, you can see there, is $107 for a lease, plus the monthly service fee that goes into it that covers your maintenance, the cost of your copies, toner, and those kinds of things. The term is a 6-month lease. You can see the total all-in cost is $156.30. And then the total cost for 60 months is $9,300, almost $9,400. There is an option to do a refurbished unit, which, as you can see, is a little cheaper for the monthly lease, a little more expensive on the service, but the terms are 12 months less. It brings the cost down to just under $6,600. I will say the refurbished piece of equipment is actually a faster, better copier. It's just refurbished as opposed to new. They will extend the warranties out on that. But I really can't keep asking the folks upstairs on the 2nd floor to print copies for me or run over to Ron's office and utilize his equipment. And so we needed to bring something in. Some of the other stuff can probably wait a little while. But I did want to go over some of the equipment costs and make sure that the board was okay with moving forward on these things, or if they had different opinions on where to go.
Did you get a quote for the laptops? I mean, are we eligible to buy this stuff through the county?
We are not.
We're not.
I did talk to some folks at the county, and they can't help us out.
Are we eligible through the state?
I didn't think that we were, but I can ask the
State
question.
affiliated.
I don't know.
I can ask the question.
It's been, yeah, I've never tried.
Who would we ask?
Oh, that's, I'll have to dig into it and find out.
And maybe somebody from Scott from IT at the county would know.
No, I talked to
He probably
them.
doesn't
They
get
shut it right down and says you're not eligible. which-
So it has to be somebody at the state
I don't
level.
know, state purchasing, yeah, I don't know what that is.
I'll dig through it. I mean, Joe Scott may be able to point me in the right direction there too.
How old's at least the refurbished? How old is it? Would be 1 year, 2 years?
I think it's less than a year. If memory serves.
It's through that same company.
Yeah.
Does the hardware cost, does that also include service?
As I understand it, it does. Yep. I'm thinking back to my memory again. They have all the descriptions happen to say an installation and those kind of things. So I believe that's the number without having it right in front of me.
You use this outfit, right, Ron? So if something happens, can you call?
Well,
them?
initially it was included, but, and now if I have a problem, it's not. I mean, set up and that, like you just said, it's included. But if I have an issue with the server or whatever, it's an hourly rate.
We only need one laptop and licenses and virus protection for now, right? Until we find a second person. You're asking for the approval for a second.
Yeah, I just assumed we were gonna move in that direction, so I wanted to give you the full all-in cost,
Right.
but you're right, this will come in incremental steps.
And obviously it's a virtual firewall, virtual server, everything's on the laptop. It's not, you're not buying these things separately.
As I understand it, I'm somewhat
Spin up a
tech
virtual-
challenged that when it comes to hardware, so, yeah, as far as I know, these are actual units and things.
There is a unit for the server. It's just it's a box. And I mean, the good part about that is on the cloud. I mean, somebody, or a board member wants to have, access or whatever. It's saved.
We need a backup of, never mind.
I mean,
So the Office subscription, we get the cloud subscription with the Office, right? So Microsoft Office has a 365
Yeah,
cloud.
yeah.
We get all the backup stuff.
So why, I
Right.
guess I'm feeling like, why do you need the server if you have the cloud?
Agree, that's my next question as well.
I think the cloud acts as your server.
I would agree.
And it's just, I mean, it's thousands, $1,700. So maybe that's a conversation with ICCI.
Or most likely somebody else who's not ICCI, so that they can kind of give me up to speed on.
Yeah.
Yeah, again, when it comes to technology, I certainly.
It's probably a good.
Might be
question to
somebody you're
ask
paying
about
for,
the
Colin.
Yeah.
Do we have a procurement policy? Do we have to get 3 bids or 2 bids for something like this?
Yeah, we do, but it's under, I don't remember the limits. I want to say it's either 3,000 or 5,000, which.
Well, this is over, right?
It's over.
Regardless of which line item you look at, software side.
It goes by
I
increment.
think the challenge in Schoharie County is ICCI is the only technology support entity. We at SEEK, we actually utilize, it's the benefit of having, you know, insurance and financial servicers on our board that we use their IT departments to help manage our stuff.
And I did reach out to another company, the name escapes me, but I think they're towards the Albany area, but not in Albany, and they didn't even want to touch it, it was too small for them.
Yeah,
I mean,
Yeah.
Repeat Business Systems is the other one that, I mean, that's who we use for the town for copier and server stuff, and they can handle everything. They're not a bad company.
was that repeat?
Repeat Business Services, yeah. Donna Dual. That's a
Nice.
good company.
Nice.
With the IT department here.
Okay.
Might be able to get a contract where you just, when you have a problem, one of their IT support specialists will come down and just address it. Even if we have to pay some fee for it, it'd be well worth the
Right here.
time because they're right here and being a matter of an hour, you know.
It's worth it if we're using their Wi-Fi, but our firewall and server, how those things act
You know, it's
with each
totally,
other is gonna be.
totally different from campus Wi-Fi. So we did that. Everything is separate here. We go straight out to the. So it'd be separate and we'd have to pay for it, I think, unless they are gonna be good-hearted about it and just send it down.
Yep. So
Discussion deal, Scott.
Yeah.
I guess my only other, if we're taking this thing holistically, the lease is $300 a month, right?
For the property, or
Yeah.
the rental space, yeah, 300 plus internet for $44.
So $344 a month is what the base, is
Yep.
what our package is. And so what was our rental rate at Seek?
400.
400,
And it included
but it included,
phone lines, copiers, all that kind of stuff.
so it included everything below for the 137-ish.
The copy machine printer, right?
And it included firewall, server, any of the other stuff?
No, not really.
Not really, okay.
No.
So really it's 400 versus
It's close, it's comparable.
481. All right. I'm just trying to do the math.
Mhm. We do have an online subscription to QuickBooks, you know, could you use that? Probably. We do have Microsoft Office, we do, you know, so there's, but I don't, seems the decision's made. Otherwise,
I think with copier, there's a little difference to get a new one versus a refurbished. Not that much difference per month.
No, but you save a year's worth. That's why I wanted to
Oh,
present the difference.
You've got to go 60 on the new.
Yeah, that's how they do that. So in the end, there's, I don't know, significant savings.
It's a lease, so either way, when you're 48, something you gotta renew and you're paying for the 60 months, anyway, you know,
Yeah.
right, you're gonna be paying 60 months regardless. You're going apples to apples. Is it worth trying to buy one? I mean, I bought like a $600 one for my house, even an inkjet one. That does everything and kind of stick it in your office.
So we spent like $750 for one, and then the big print job took a race. So the toner is
Right.
expensive.
Yeah, I don't burn
Yeah,
through too
you
much.
can
in the house.
Ditch it for instead of 20 grand.
I really use it for
Whatever
scanning.
the hell costs.
Try to do everything digitally.
The thing with this is just to produce these kinds of sheets,
So
it's gotta
expensive.
be,
Well, that's the other thing. I mean, do these printers have the black and white per page cost in the lease too?
Yeah, that's where the service comes in, and I'd have to look up those numbers.
So you're just estimating at the 49?
No, it's included, and there's a minimum number of copies,
Gotcha.
and then, above and beyond, you
Yeah.
pay a per
2
page
cents a
cost.
page. or-
Yeah, that sounds about right, yeah.
Yeah, for black and white, it's usually something like that. I don't want to get in the weeds dealing with this stuff, so it's kind of tough, so like you get it, like, so we can-
I mean,
Yeah.
as long as you give me the authority to go ahead and make some of these decisions, then I just,
don't care.
I just didn't want to not have you know that, there are going to be some costs, and, when you see the end of the year,
I
you say,
mean,
oh
maybe,
my
you
God,
can-
where?
maybe you can get Ben's contact or whoever the town clerk is, and go one more quote.
But I wrote down the
Compare the
name, so I'll reach out to
Yeah, they're
them.
good.
you're gonna need some quotes,
And then go forward.
that'll be good.
Yeah, I don't want to micromanage this stuff, so I don't really care personally. I don't know what everybody else thinks.
So as long as you're okay with me moving forward, I'll make sure that we're following all the procurement guidelines, and I'll sign off on expenditures. I just didn't want I didn't want it to be a surprise next whenever, when you're looking at, P&Ls and say, oh my God, why is that so much? So,
Just had a thought on state procurement. You might want to check with some other IDA and see how they acquire their equipment.
we'll do, that's a good idea.
That would save significantly, I think. We would be able to buy them contract.
I would agree. That's why I asked about the county, that the county contracts for this stuff is a lot cheaper. I think it was like $1,100 for a laptop all set up and ready to go for the town clerks.
All right, we'll dig more into it. Thank you for the feedback. Excellent.
Any further discussion on technology? Disability and leave insurance policy?
Sure, now that you have an actual employee, there's some things that we need to do. One of them is to get disability and leave policy insurance. The cost estimate for that is $427 for the year. And I just want to make sure you're okay with me signing off on that paperwork, or if you want to do a motion to allow me to do so.
Pleasure of the board.
Probably a motion is good.
I have a
I'll make that
motion.
motion.
This is required by law, so I don't know why you need a motion. You have an
Oh,
employee.
really? Okay.
Required, right? So, I mean, why?
Just,
But I'm okay with a motion.
Yeah.
Just because the person signing off is the same person getting the insurance, it's nice to have the board's
Yeah.
opinion on it,
Okay.
yeah.
Good point, Julie.
All right.
Peter, you making a motion?
yes.
Second? On the second? Any further discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
All opposed? Hearing none, motion approved.
We also have to apply for a withholding number for the state, and that actually works as your unemployment number as well. I have filled out the paperwork. Unfortunately, in New York State, you can register online for everything unless you're a government entity. So I did fill out NYS 100G, G for government, and that's been filed. So we are able to process payroll while we wait for that number, but I'm not sure how fast or slow New York State will be on that. And my next point, and thank you, Julie, for bringing that up. We did, the chairman sign off, bring in paychecks to do payroll. And I will put together a process because I am approving payroll and I'm the only person on there of having somebody sign off on payroll at some point in time. And I'm not sure the best thing to do, but in my mind, I think I would print out the payroll report and just get it to the chairman and have him just initial it would be the best thing. And then, I mean, after this payroll, it's going to be the same number every time. So I think it'll get repetitive and an easy sign off. This one was I started on Tuesday instead of a Monday, so there's one less day in the pay period, so that number will be a little lower. But I would feel more comfortable if somebody at least looked at the number. I don't want to ever be accused of taking more than I have coming to me, but I wanted to make sure that the board understood that there were some of these things that needed to come through. As far as unemployment is concerned, a government entity doesn't have to pay into the trust account, but what they do is they are still liable for it. So if somebody does go on unemployment, whatever that liability is, the state will send you a bill. They'll always catch up to you. But at least you're not paying in to the trust fund, whether you need it or not. But those are just kind of FYIs for the board. Lots of little things that we've had to do or continue to do to get the office up to speed.
Next item?
Next item is an endorsement by the board or the chairman for the Travel Plaza and exit 23. I think this is information that was sent out, that project moving forward. That the Town of Schoharie Planning Board is going to be or plans to be lead agency on that project for seeker. And so the board can endorse, not endorse, be against, not comment at all on the circumstance. I think Peter sent a follow-up email after I circulated that information that the IDA perhaps should consider endorsement. I think he actually said it stronger than I did, but I don't want to put words in his mouth.
Yeah, well, it's actually just a technical kind of thing, but why not?
Yeah, if you don't do this and we wind up going into the project, you'll have to do your own seeker. So it's best to leave it, I think, into the towns, which is very local hands, and go along with their being lead.
But if they deny the project, we're beholden to,
Right, they deny it
Denial.
because of the seeker, yes, you're right.
and
Although they wouldn't get the project through, right, if they did deny it, even if we wanted to.
we wouldn't see the project.
Yeah, you wouldn't see the project anyway. I think it's right to defer to them as the lead agency.
So there's a form to sign. And so maybe a motion to allow the chairman to sign that form and I'll get it to him.
Is there a motion?
Second.
Yeah, I think you're right. So I don't think the project goes if you don't
Any further discussion?
get past secret of the town.
We're hoping the ZBA goes.
All in favor?
Aye.
All opposed? Hearing none, motion approved. Next item?
Next item is health insurance subsidy from the county to the IDA. The county did agree to provide additional funding to the IDA to cover health insurance costs for a certain employee. And as long as we don't talk about that, we can stay in open session. I have not been able to connect with the county administrator on all of the details, but as it's been explained to me, the county will look to amend the MOU that lists $130,000 and add the additional amount for healthcare into that number, and they'll do their approvals on their schedule. And so what I was hoping is that we get a motion for the chairman to be able to sign that MOU when it does come into play, that would basically add 130 plus the subsidy support for health insurance.
I want to read the MOU before I agree to that, if it's possible. It's not gonna hold up the funding or the insurance or anything like that, right? Like, that stuff's all gonna
I'm
happen.
just gonna ask that, would his delay the insurance?
Well, here's how that's gonna work is, originally the county had said that they would cover this employee with county insurance. So they would basically take the county's insurance and give it to the IDA. Well, that is no longer possible for a number of different reasons, and I will not make any comments on that. So what the workaround on that would be is for the IDA to cover COBRA coverage, which is comparable as far as coverage and cost are concerned for this employee. And then the county would obviously,
But that only lasts for 18 months.
36 months.
Cobra's 36 months.
COBRA is 36 months.
Okay, wow. I didn't know that either. I thought it was
Yeah.
only 18.
I have seen a document that says 36 months. And so that's why.
Our employee should just confirm with previous employment what that Cobra timeline is. I think that's probably where it derives, right? So,
So the issue happens to be the longer this goes out, COBRA still has to be paid for.
Right.
It is the issue there.
right. Well, so it's a reimbursement to the IDA, right?
It would not be a reimbursement per se. It would basically be an additional subsidy, and the schedule of which can be determined via MOU.
And the IDA pays for the Cobra coverage and the IDA collects from the county. to be
Yeah,
made
and it
whole.
can be done as a
Do
lump
like
sum, it could be done
quarterly,
quarterly, it could be done.
So that process can happen irrespective of when we approve the updated MOU.
Which could be motion number 2 on my sheet here, if that's the direction you want it to go in, yeah.
I personally want to read the MOU before
Can't hurt to read it, actually.
I don't want to see what it says.
Okay,
You're meeting with Corsa next Monday.
that's the rumor. Well, he's been out for a couple of weeks, and so we do have something on the books, but, given circumstances, that might get postponed, but that'll be definitely one of the topics of
So
discussion.
this could be passed by the Board of Supervisors at their October meeting.
It's possible that tomorrow's Economic Development Committee meeting, this topic could come up. I'm not 100% sure it will. I will,
Why there? That's weird.
well, as the IDA, the oversight committee for the IDA is economic development. So any changes would, that's the committee of jurisdiction. So that's why it would start there. And then it would go to the finance committee, which obviously makes more sense because these are dollars, but everything has to start in the committee of jurisdiction.
Really? Because it didn't, I'm sorry. None of it has, but
Who signs the MOU on the county level, at the county?
The chairman would sign that.
Federese
Yeah.
signs?
We can address it at the next
think-
IDA morning meeting, right?
But
The MOU?
Yeah,
Yeah, I there may not be any, I don't know if there's a sense of urgency on that. There might be a sense of urgency on the COBRA coverage and getting that paid on a regular basis
Well, we have to be responsible for your insurance anyway.
for an employee's
So,
insurance.
so I think you can rest assured that that this will be covered. I'm wondering if there's a cheaper or less expensive way of dealing with this. If you were to go out into the new world of medical insurance, maybe you can get a better deal.
did you research that? John, I thought you had.
Well, in my small group, I have, and I think it's whatever that person's looking into is comparable for what I've seen. Well, but I've only been local. I mean,
Yeah.
I don't know, and I'm not in any consortium. So I guess there is a possibility, like,
It's probably unlikely.
yeah, I mean.
I just got
the
something.
family's all been around two grand, almost 24 grand per family. I mean, singles, 11 or 11 and a half or something, per year.
So you've got 3 different options here for the employee. You've got COBRA coverage, which is slightly under $2,100. You've got the Excelsior plan for NISHIP, which is slightly under $2,100. And then if you were to be able to get the county's coverage from CDPHP, that's slightly under $2,100. If they're within, say, $10 or $20 of each amount, so that seems to be the
rate.
The rate, given the fact that the county is not at present time capable of extending the CDPHP coverage, and the fact that the Excelsior program would take 90 days to spin up anyway. The most expedient thing without hurting financially and jeopardizing coverages is Cobra, and there's some synergies there to continue with past coverage as well.
So if you do the Cobra, you can always convert to something else at some time in the future.
That's correct.
At any point.
Well, why don't we simply state in the minutes that the IDA will be responsible for your coverage.
Why don't we do the employee coverage? Why don't we do a reimbursement for September's coverage, and then we'll determine October once the MOU is finalized, and make a motion for October's reimbursement at that point.
If there's reimbursement that is considered income to the employee and therefore ends up being taxable. So there's a consideration there that at least needs to be discussed and thought through. As I talked
If
with
the reimbursement is to you.
to the employee,
That would be.
because we're not.
taxable.
Correct, if the reimburse, and when you think about it, the money's gonna go to from the county to the IDA, and then if it was quote reimbursement, then that money would have to go from the IDA to the employee, who would then make that payment. It's cleaner and it's more tax advantageous to the employee if the IDA just makes the payment directly.
Yeah, but if it's for medical insurance, there's a provision, well, it was when I was aware of these things, that it's not taxable. Medical insurance, isn't taxable. Well, but why don't we?
The research I've shown is
why don't we-
different, and then,
Should be.
and Joe Scott said that for sure, if there was a reimbursement, that's why I keep correcting the word reimbursement, because
That, understood. Let's have the IDA make the payment to the
Yeah,
Cobra coverage
that's
for
right. That's
September.
what
So there's no disruption.
Right, and we'll
And then we'll
revisit.
revisit
right,
it when we see the MOU. That's what the motion should be.
Okay,
Is there a second?
there is.
All in favor?
Aye.
All opposed? Hearing none, motion is approved.
sorry about that. It's just gonna be trench warfare for a little while. We get these details figured out. Other, Exhibit 10 in your packet starts with an email from Gus McGyver, Chief of Staff, from the Office of the President of SUNY Coldsteel, to the Chairman and myself regarding a revocable permit, which I will loosely call the lease for our office space here at SUNY. The first month is a cost of $0. And moving forward, as I believe Ben pointed out, and that would be on page, well, it's Exhibit C, sorry, of the packet, in your packet. The cost of the monthly lease is $300. Phone line and voicemail box is $44 a month. And then obviously there is a long distance charge of 2.5 cents per minute for domestic long distance. So those are the costs. This document would need to be signed, and that will officially make the first month okay to do. I wasn't going to sign it unless I were to get permission from the board to do so. We also will expect another document coming in that would talk about those costs and finalize those costs in a monthly document. So this one is basically for the first month of operation, with a total amount due of $0 while we await the additional documentation.
The next document will cover a full term for a year. Is that what the deal is?
I'm not sure what the time frame is going to be, but you're right, it's going to be more than a month.
Irrespective of whatever the lease says, it says it's revocable at any time for any reason. So there really isn't a time frame of activities,
The month to month, you're saying.
essentially, yes. Yeah.
So behave yourself.
I'll make sure that goes in the minutes. They've been very welcoming here and very, very helpful, and I appreciate very much what they've done to make me feel at home. They even brought a little refrigerator down yesterday for me, which was nice.
Very good. All right, so do you need us to authorize this?
I'd appreciate a motion, yeah.
All right, so it's the revocable permit for non-commercial use of university facilities.
We do that. We do the same for the co-working space at Seek, that it's not to imply a real estate transaction.
Okay,
It's a temporary use of space.
so I move that we
I don't know.
authorize the Fonda to sign the revocable permit for non-commercial use of university facilities for the period 9/6/23 to 10/5/23.
So, I mean, do you have a sense of how long you're allowed to be here? I mean, is it 6 months? Is it a year? What is the,
I think the plans are long, Chet can probably talk more about this than I can, but the plan is to provide long-term space to the IDA. I think there's a longer-term plan of taking a building here and converting it into more of a one-stop shop for economic development. So I think that's the long-term plan. I think that's a little ways down the road for it to happen. Chet, do you have any?
That's what I've been told. And that's all I can say.
is it the $14 million grant for converting the building on the hill? Is that what? That's what you're expecting?
That's out there?
Yeah.
Yes, I guess.
Mhm.
So I've heard home economics, is that what you've seen?
That's what I understood it to be.
Okay, yes. So, and to answer your question, it is long-term from the college's perspective at this point. But as Ben points out, it's revocable, so, we could change our mind somewhere else.
There's any, like in a lease we have had with Beekman, there was a period of time.
There's
So
nothing in here. So it's revocable at any point in time.
At
and
any point in time, without notice,
Correct.
that's what I'm talking about.
For any reason, as
There's no
soon as
notice
they give us
required.
notice, we need to
Without
remove all
cause,
possessions from the
Well,
premises.
cause or no cause, but at least if you have a notice requirement,
It doesn't seem to be there.
yeah. That's a little troubling that there's no notice requirement.
You would assume that they'd give you, a couple of days,
Yeah,
at least to
yeah.
remove your belongings, but it says as soon as they tell you, you need to remove your
Security scanning over your desk.
How does that operate with with Steve?
What is that? The use of the space?
Yeah,
So we had offered $400 a month for use of the space. It did include your storage space needed for all of your documentation, did include phone, does include the copier and such. We do have 2 refrigerators.
and coffee.
And
bagels.
bottomless coffee, and bagels, all that good stuff. But it is a 30-day notice.
30-day notice?
30-day
for your
notice. It's
revocable
pretty
space?
standard.
Okay. All right,
Of course, this is State University of New York, rather than Cobleskill. So
Mhm.
They may
you
have,
probably have to get the legislature to change this.
There's a provision in there relative to like notice 177 or executive order 177. I just gotta make sure we double check that we actually have that policy in place. I don't remember it, but certainly it
Yeah, that was,
may likely be there somewhere. Number 19 in the
Yep.
agreement.
Yeah, I read that as making sure that we have a policy in place and that everyone goes through the training, the sexual harassment training.
Right, that should be part of our onboarding. I guess I would assume at some point.
Yeah, and the training is online. You don't have to purchase it. You don't have to
Yeah,
hire somebody.
okay, sexual harassment.
we have to get that too. Right?
I'm covered because of my last employer I had it, so I'm good for the year. And in November, I'll make sure I take it again. And we'll make it a regular type thing. Towards the end of the year makes sense. Things are wrapping up.
Yeah, it's the kind, I've always been, because we do this at the village of Schoharie. But I think that it's transferable,
Yes,
Mhm.
so.
you just have to sign up.
Is there actually anybody that's checking any of this to make sure that,
Well, that's
Gonna
where you
say-
go, you know. When something happens, you can be rest assured they'll be checking.
Do the board members have to do this?
Yeah.
Well, we've never done it. I've never gone to a class on.
Well, we
Sorry,
can post
Joe.
it. There's also board training
Joe.
through ABO that you might re-up with everybody as well.
Yep.
Well, these are all more recent laws and that kind of thing. It used to be you only had to do it once, now you have to do it annually.
So you're gonna tell us when we should be going to this thing online?
Yeah, no, we'll set all that up. We'll do it as a single training. I think we can probably pull that off. Yeah, you definitely have ABO training that you should be
We're gonna be
doing.
doing that for.
Yeah, because we did the training for becoming an IDA board member online.
Yep.
Yeah, okay.
Okay, next item are bank signatures.
Do we,
Oh, I'm sorry, did you want
are
to go
we
back?
doing passing a motion on that or? is
We
it-
have to second,
Yes.
we have to second this motion.
So the motion again is,
That the board authorizes Fonda Cronus to sign the revocable permit for non-commercial use of university facilities for the period 9/6/23 to 10/5/23. Then we'll have to do another one next month,
In a week.
in a week.
in a week,
Or they could-
October
or they
5th
could-
is-
yeah,
October 5th is it, yeah.
Yeah,
or they could throw us out.
Well,
Without
first
cost.
the zero and then for the charge. Yeah, there's another document that they're gonna.
Yeah, they have to provide another document.
All right, so then that's the motion. I second it.
all right?
So this is just for till 10:05.
According to what he just said, they're gonna give us another document going.
So
Does that mean
we can
one-stop
address
shopping
the
for
next one
everybody,
in
Joe, but
our
something gonna last a
October
week?
Yeah,
Because essentially, he's been here for a couple of weeks now. So we're addressing it now after the fact. We can do the same thing.
Ratifying it. But I think the point is come October 6th, hopefully they'll provide that document before then. That's what you expect.
I would expect that I'm gonna send an email to make sure that I get that document.
what she said.
Okay, any further discussion on the motion?
I need a second. Did somebody second?
I second
I'm
it.
sorry. Didn't get that.
All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
All opposed? Hearing none, motion passed.
All right, a couple more things on other, and I will get you out of here. With the retirement of Ron Filmer, that leaves a void as far as bank signatures are concerned. I think there were some emails that went around, or at least I read a couple. Well, I think what the plan would be is to remove Ron, add me, and perhaps another board member. So if somebody's traveling, we can get that counter signature. So the banks are gonna require a motion from the board that I can point to add me and whoever else we decide to add on the board. But I just want to get that down in the minutes so that we can make that transition as quickly as possible. So Ron can really be done.
You sure you want to give up this?
I'll watch you all the time.
And the other thing too is if there are checks that directly benefit me, I really don't want to be signing them. That's why having an additional board member on the signature line will be helpful. I just, from a transparency reason and just a fairness reason, I don't want there to be any reason for people to second guess decisions.
Do you want to do it where your signature is, only your signature is required up to a certain amount? And because if you have to spend money for various things, the other question is do we have a credit card for you?
Well, that's one of the questions I want. We do not have an agency credit card. I think that probably the best thing to do from a separation of duties and just clear lines is making sure that if there's a check cut, that it had two signatures for any amount.
Any amount?
And then this way, because I'm only one employee at this point, and there may be a second one down the road, but nonetheless, you still want to have separation of duties as much as possible, or at least a check. And we may not be able to do separation of duties, but if you need two people to sign a check, I think that is a good way to ensure that we don't have any issues. But to your point, I think getting an agency credit card, I think would be very helpful in doing some of the day-to-day things, which would be a topic of discussion that I did have down here.
Fonda, could you just suggest a motion for the bank signatures?
Sure. Motion to add Fonda Cronus and one additional board member to be able to sign off on checks.
Should be the treasurer, whoever, treasurer, are you treasurer? Wanda.
Well, Wanda's already on there, but
So it should be Chet,
They don't want new
Wanda,
cards.
Chet, Wanda, and you.
Well, he's asking that there needs to be another. Now, Wanda's gone for
5 months.
5 months.
You could say treasurer and vice chair, or chair and vice.
Chair and treasurer.
Treasurer,
Right.
vice chair.
because if you end up paying Cobra, I would prefer that my signature not be on the check. I'd like to have two board members. This way, if somebody were to say he's signing off on a check that could benefit him, I just don't want that appearance, and there's no reason for it.
No, we didn't have it.
So the chair and the treasurer. That's what I think the motion
You
is.
said, but you want 3 though, you said.
We would need an additional above, beyond the
you-
treasurer,
okay,
because
yeah.
the treasurer oftentimes is not available.
So you want 2 board
3 board
members
members.
plus,
Plus another-
3 board
three
members.
Yeah, an additional board member to what's it, because
So
Chet's
you
on there
only
now.
need two to sign off on stuff.
Correct. And if it's routine stuff, I'll have the signature and we'll get one other. But if there's something that has to do with the benefit of an employee, it makes more sense to have 2 board members sign off on it.
So you're on it, and you're on it, so you need one
we,
more.
at
person.
Seek, we have everybody. Right?
We have, right, the
There
executive.
are only 5 of us. Wanda's gone, other people may be gone. Why don't we just do the 5 board members? That will make it easier.
Good idea.
Plus Fonda.
Yes.
So any board member can sign up. Okay.
Great idea.
Yeah, because at Seek, we were doing that. And then Eric Stein was managing the northern division, Bassett, or the southern division. It was, he was having to come in at 6 in the morning to sign checks.
Next item.
Next item, support letter for Grove Street project. Julie has more information than this, but apparently, did I say that right? Grove Street?
Yeah.
Okay, good. There's a DRI project proposed with this property to do some housing. And we've been asked, the IDA has been asked to provide a letter of support. And I just wanted to make sure you were okay with the chairman signing a letter. I have drafted something. But I just wanted to make sure that it's not a big surprise that the IDA board knows that this project is out there. Support letter's been asked for, and to make sure it has your blessing for the chairman to be able to sign it.
What is the project? I mean, it's first of all.
I'll punt it to.
So I'm actually going to hand it to Ron.
Yeah, well, the village is submitting a DRI application for Village Colesville, I should be more specific. And the IDA owns the one piece of property we haven't really just talked about much that was going to be used on behalf joint partners with the RPC to do affordable housing just years ago. Well, the village wants to include that as a site for affordable housing in their DRI application. The mayor's talked to me about it and briefly, and I guess, and then Brandon
Brandon,
Lamont
right.
was kind of in charge, I guess, of doing, helping the application out,
Mhm.
is asked for a letter of support. And so I think it's probably a good idea. I mean, it says, I mean, I'd like the RPC, but this is down the road, to be more involved than just, a bystander. But for now, they're just asking if we support affordable housing in that area, so to speak. And and it's MacArthur Avenue, by the way. So it's where a lot of other mixed-use housing, mixed-use meaning homeowners and apartments, is located. So I think it's a good idea, and I think it's, from a housing perspective, housing is needed.
Yeah.
in the county, so I think it's probably, my recommendation is probably a good idea to say it's a good idea, and then we support it.
Good.
Okay, so I have a letter draft and I'll get it to the chairman for the signature. I do want to go back to the bank signatures. I don't know if we actually did a vote on that. I don't remember us doing it. So I proposed that motion, then we amended it to have all board members, but I don't think we had a motion and a second.
Okay, I'll make the motion.
Have all board members as signatories. And I'll second that.
Any further discussion on that? Hearing none, all in favor?
Aye.
All opposed? Hearing none, motion passed.
Last item, I promise. Is just a piggyback off of that for a discussion on the thought about getting an agency credit card to be able to make some general purchases. Just an example of how this makes it difficult is I had to go through a vendor to get us a Zoom account. Or I had to put it on my credit card, which I was willing to do, but they said they would do it and then bill us. So that just is an extra step and a check that has to get cut for something that is basically the price of doing business. I think we would have to put some kind of a check and balance in on how that works. And I'm happy to put that together, but I just wanted to gauge the temperature of the board and getting something like that.
I
With
think,
the maximum.
Yeah,
With the maximum.
yeah, I think a board member or the chairman or at least a board member has to apply for the card. Isn't that what we did at Seek?
Well, I'm not sure if it's because we were not for profit, hadn't been established. I mean, this organization's been established for so long. I don't know.
So,
I don't
And
know.
then at Plain Heart, we didn't have to do that. It was the executive director
okay.
did it with, and this was at NBT anyway.
Yeah. So, yeah, no, I think the credit card is
Yeah.
the proper way to
Yeah.
go.
yeah. So we want to limit.
Let me I'll get the details on it and bring it to you next month. How's that?
Yeah.
Yeah.
I don't think it's super pressing at this point. I mean, it's been
75,000.
years.
But it's a good,
All right, well, if you're gonna limit me.
75,000.
oh. I think it's 30.
Give or take.
All right,
Pick a credit card that you like and go for
Yeah,
it.
good pitch.
Send us a credit card
You can keep the
policy.
mileage, by the way.
Whatever sort of policy,
Points of mileage.
sort of spending
Big thing.
policy or whatever.
any other items that come before the
I have nothing on my end, Mr. Chairman.
anything else from the board?
Do we need to choose a date for the next meeting?
Yes, we do. That's what
All right.
we're going to do now. Remember when everybody used to take out the Franklin day planners?
That's why the big American check.
Ron, get this one on your calendar. I want to make sure you come.
Always invite you.
The public.
You're the public now. You're the public now. That's right. Watch all the criticisms are gonna come out now, right?
Yeah, I know.
Okay, so. where are we?
So is it always on a Wednesday?
Doesn't have to be.
Doesn't have to be, no.
Sometime during the week of the 23rd? Or the 30th?
I had, the 25th is no good for me. And the 26th is 26th. 25th is no good. 24th, 30th, 30th is a Monday.
24th is a seat board meeting, isn't it?
Mhm.
in the afternoon. Yeah, we could do it in the morning though. It's actually not awful since it's gonna be out here that day anyways.
October 24th?
At 9 o'clock. Not that I know how to get here.
And we'll do something similar. We'll have campus police cordoning off some parking spots for you in that general area. And I'll have temporary permits for you. I'm going to try and email them just so you have them as you pull up and all you have to do is print them out. But I can't guarantee you they're going to let me do that. I'm
Okay.
trying to sugarcoat them.
Well, it's, you know, we, just parking down at the visitors thing is no big deal. So,
Yeah, when
Well,
it gets to be bad weather, I don't know.
This is nice.
Easier
Right
to
here.
pull up here.
Yeah, this is great.
I mean, they agreed to come up and coordinate,
okay. And that's parking lot H, is that
I
it?
think that's what they call it, PH, so
Okay.
parking H.
where did you go, Ben? You parked down?
I'm just down on the side
on the
here.
side here?
Yeah. I didn't see any spots in there when I came through, so I just kept going.
Just a motion for adjournment.
All right,
Motion to adjourn?
so moved. Ben?
Second?
Aye. Yep.
All in favor?
Aye.
All opposed? Hearing none? Meeting adjourned.
Thanks, everyone. Appreciate it.
Traffic.
See you. Thank you.
There's traffic.
You guys later.
Yep, see you, Ben.
Bye, Ben.